Good evening. Today is February the 18th. Right now it is 7:40 and I'm calling to order this evening's meeting of the Guilford Planning and Zoning Commission. For the benefit of those who have not participated in the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, our procedures are as follows. The Secretary will read the legal notice of the meeting as published in the local newspapers. The applicant will be invited to come forward and present the case, explaining to the Commission and others present what is being requested of this property. Comments of town agencies will be read for each application if there are any. First, there'll be clarifying questions from the Commissioners, then there'll be an opportunity for clarifying questions from the audience. Next, we'll ask those who want to support the application to come forward. Second, we'll ask those who are opposing the application to come forward. As this is a public meeting and must be recorded, it will be necessary for speakers to identify themselves by stating their name and address before addressing the Commission. The applicant will then be free to leave or remain for the balance of the public hearing and the regular meeting, during which the Commission will try to reach a decision on each application. Each applicant will be notified in writing as to the decision of the Commission and has the right to appeal to Superior Court if desired. Decisions of this meeting are available the day after the meeting by calling the Planning and Zoning Office at 203-453-8039 after 9 a.m. Seated tonight are the following members of the Guilford Planning and Zoning Commission. We have Tom Cost, I'm Rich Meyer, Richard Wallace, George Underhill, Phil Johnson, and Frank DeAndrea, and Ray Bauer. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So that's perfect. Everyone is seated. We're joined by staff. We have George Crowell. We have Sally Berezowski. Reggie is on vacation, so we don't have her. And we don't have a secretary, so who wants to read who has the notice? Someone has to have the notice. It's in Walter's folder. All right, so we're going to read the notice. You want to read it? There it is. There it is. Okay, good. You read that, please. Here, take mine. There you go. Also.
Legal notice, Guilford Planning and Zoning Commission. Notice is hereby given that the Guilford Planning and Zoning Commission will hold a public hearing on February 18, 2015 at 7:30 p.m. at the Nathaniel B. Green Community Center, Whitfield Room, first floor, 32 Church Street, Guilford, Connecticut, for the following purpose. 1. 66 High Street, Guilford, LLC, 66 High Street and 47 High Street, map 32, lots 60 and 64, zones I-1 and R3, special permit and coastal area management site plan, redevelopment of existing factory to residential condominiums under the Town Center South Overlay Zone Development District Regulations 273-251. 2. Benton's Knoll, LLC, 215 Colonial Road, Unit 10, House 9, Map 8, Lot 24, Zone R5, PRD special permit revision to allow 14-foot by 20-foot in-ground pool. Copies of these applications are available for inspection at the office of the Planning and Zoning Commission, Town Hall South, 50 Boston Street, Guilford, Connecticut. At this hearing, persons may attend and be heard, and written communication will be received. Dated at Guilford, Connecticut, this 28th day of January 2015. Richard Meyer, Chairman.
Wonderful. Thank you. All right. So can I get a motion to accept the revised agenda?
Motion.
Second. All those in favor? Aye. We're going to do a little bit something different tonight. We're going to do the Benton Knoll application, and we're going to deliberate, and then we're going to get to 66 High Street, so the folks from Benton's Knoll can get out before the snow starts. So who do we have from Benton's Knoll? Anybody want to come on down? Familiar face.
Good evening. My name is Russ Smith with Benton's Knoll, Louisville Lime. We're here tonight for an application to amend the current PRD approval for a pool for unit number 10. Based upon your regulations and definitions, a pool is noted as a structure, and in order for it to be approved for this, an amendment needs to be made to the PRD because of the definition of a pool as a structure. If you recollect, or some of you recollect, we were here just about a year ago for basically the same type of an application for unit number 12, where we installed a pool on that unit as well. So we're pretty much rubber stamping that same type of property and project on unit number 10. Questions?
Nowhere near a wetland, right?
We are above and outside of any of the wetland areas. So again, upgrading, and we're upgrading from one wetlands that the watershed doesn't go that way, and downgrading from many others.
Did you explain the system, the pool system that you're using?
It's the same type of pool system that was used previously, a saltwater pool with a cover on it, as well as having the overflow covered by a set of ground infiltrators.
How deep is it, sir?
The size of the pool?
How deep is the pool?
This is going to be a 5-foot pool from memory. It's not a diving pool, but more of a fun and games
Is there
type
a
of pool.
diving board with it?
Correct.
No?
There's
No diving board?
No diving board proposed at this point.
Okay.
Is there going to be any blasting?
We've had a significant amount of ledge up there, so I would anticipate there's a high potential for blasting, yes. Hopefully not, but there's potential for it.
Okay. Any other questions? Ray? I got him further home. Well, yeah, that's just the pool.
Close to the house.
How far away are we from other houses?
Well, let's see, the closest house on this one would be unit number 9, which is probably, we have an open space corridor between this house. I'm going to guess it's probably 100 feet approximately. The next unit that would be potentially closest would be unit number 11, and I believe that would probably be a distance of 50 to 75 feet from the house, from the pool to the house. We have a distance from the house to house, I believe, of a minimum of 50 feet there.
So blasting won't be an issue?
Blasting will not be an issue.
Is it going to be lighted?
We don't actually have a lighting plan at this point, but any of the lighting that we've done in the project has always been on-site lighting, down lighting, so that we're not going to have any lightscape that's going to pollute onto the neighbor's properties from a lighting standpoint.
Any other questions?
I have a letter if you want me to read it in.
Would you mind?
This is from Kevin McGee, the environmental planner, to the Guilford Planning and Zoning Commission, dated February 17, 2015. This applicant is looking to revise the plan, residential development site plan, to allow a swimming pool to be installed behind Unit 10. The proposed location of the swimming pool is outside of the 100-foot wetland review area. In 2014, the Inland Wetland Commission reviewed a referral from the Planning and Zoning Commission to the Inland Wetland Commission for revision to Benton's Knoll PRD special permit for the installation of an in-ground swimming pool on Lot Unit 12. At its April 9, 2014 meeting, the Commission unanimously voted to refer the request favorably to Planning and Zoning Commission, with the finding that it is not a regulated activity since the work is being conducted outside of the 100-foot regulatory review zone. The maintenance of the rain garden should be conducted in accordance with approved stormwater maintenance plan, and the Connecticut Department of Energy and Environmental Protection regulates the discharge of pool water and requires the pool contractor to be registered under the general permit for the discharge of swimming pool water wastewater. The general permit provides standards that the contractors must follow while working on pools, which include and limits on chemicals being discharged and the requirement to discharge the subsurface disposal system. To prevent harm to the down gradient wetlands, I recommend the following condition of approval. 1, all discharges from swimming pool be conducted in accordance to the latest version of the CT Connecticut DEEP general permit for discharge of swimming pool wastewaters.
Any other questions?
And then just one more from Dennis Johnson. He just said, to the Planning and Zoning Commission from Dennis Johnson, Director of Health, dated February 18th, 2015, that the applicant's proposed in-ground pool does not conflict with the Public Health Code regulation regarding septic systems.
Great. Thanks, Frank. No other questions from the commission? Any of our guests have any questions?
Any comments for or against? Hearing none, I'm going to ask for a motion to close public hearing.
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor? Aye. All right, so before we get to 66 High, like I said, let's deliberate. Let's get these folks on their way.
So do we have to have approval? What's the process?
We have a motion. We'll read the motion, and then we'll have
Okay.
discussion. And
I'll read a motion. Voted that the Guilford Planning and Zoning Commission approve a special permit revision for Benton's Knoll PRD, Unit 10, 215 Colonial Road, Map 8, Lot 24, to add a swimming pool as shown on a application dated January 9th, 2015. The application is approved with the following condition. All discharges from the swimming pool will be conducted in accordance with the latest version of the Connecticut DEEP General Permit for Discharge of Swimming Pool Wastewaters. This application is approved based upon the finding that it conforms with the zoning code, The special permit revision is effective on February 27, 2015, upon filing with the town clerk.
Second.
All right, so let's have a little discussion. What do all of us think?
Well, it's out of the 100-foot review area.
Yep, so it's not a
Not
wetlands
a
threat.
real wetlands issue. However, we do have a condition in there where best practices are going to be followed, and indeed the Connecticut DEP regulations. So as long as they have that as a condition, they've agreed to conform to it, I think we're all set to go ahead and approve it, and I will vote in favor.
Yeah, but the only concern I might have is that impermeable surface is increasing, but I don't see that as an issue. We have a lot of land, and a lot of lead, so the water's not going anywhere anyway.
Well, he's within what he can use
Yeah.
as a matter of right, so he doesn't need a variance or anything for that.
Bill?
Seems like a reasonable improvement to me.
Yeah, Frank? George?
Good. Reasonable and
All right,
all
so,
I vote's always good.
yep, all right. Last chance. Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you for allowing me to
I figured you'd want to run for it. Thank you, appreciate it. All right, open, can I have a motion to open the public hearing for,
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
All right, so it's 66 High Street, Guilford LLC. Who do we have presenting tonight? Okay. We're going to get blinded.
Just give us a second, she's setting up the...
Use the microphone on.
Sure. Okay, while she's getting started, can you hear me? Welcome to a presentation of the proposed redevelopment of 66 High Street, also known as the old Clinnipad property. My name is Ron Nault, professional engineer from the engineering and architectural firm of Lukes, DeCarlo and Dahl, performing design on the project and a Guilford resident. Also part of our design team is Siobhan Towers, licensed landscape architect and principal in the firm Towers Goldie, and also a Guilford resident. Here tonight also is Kenny Horton, primary owner of the project. The Hortons are also Guilford residents. Kenny operates a successful construction and development company and has performed similar projects, including many old mill renovations, such as the Strauss Adler Smoothie Factory conversion to apartments in New Haven. Also with us tonight is Bob Griswatz, licensed architect and head of our architectural design group at DeCarlo and Dahl, and his assistant, Adriana Ricciardi. By way of introduction, Bob is a licensed architect, graduate of the Yale School of Architecture, and recent award winner for his $32 million renovation of Waterbury City Hall. Bob is a resident of New Haven and was a former member of the New Haven Historic District Commission, where he served for 20 years, including 9 as chairman. project entitled The Residences at 66 High Street is comprised of the former Clinipad factory site and an adjacent parcel, 47 South Fair Street, totaling over 15 acres. The property is zoned Industrial I-1 and was most recently used as a manufacturing and assembly factory for medical devices employing over 200 people. The site sits 1/3 of a mile southwest from the Guilford Green and 1/2 mile northwest of the Guilford train station in the Town Center South Historic District. The property is bounded by residential neighborhoods to the north and west by South Fair Street, High Street, and Halleck Street, and to the west and south by the salt marshes of the West River. The parcel exists within the boundaries of the Town Center South Overlay Zone District. We are here to present our plans for the redevelopment of 66 High Street from its current industrial use to a residential condominium use as encouraged in the Town Center South Overlay Zone District regulations passed by the Planning and Zoning Commission and approved by the town. We hope to show you how our proposed redevelopment of 66 High is exactly what the Town Center South Zone permits, encourages actually. How, can we turn the lights up a little bit? How, oh, no, just, never mind, then I'll just adjust. How it's what's encouraged by the Town Center South permit, how we have met all of the standards and criteria before us, how we have spared no expense in designing it to be beautiful, how it will add to the Guilford Village character, how it will bring vitality to downtown, and how it respects the neighbors and neighborhood. Our target is generally empty nesters who want to maintain or establish a residence in a beautiful town like Guilford within walking distance to shops and the train station. We expect this project will result in very little demand on town services such as schools, police, and public works, while yielding a significant tax boost to the town. We think that this is one of the best sites in town, and we want to make it one of the most desirable residential communities along the shoreline. Other than that, our goals are modest. The development of the proposed 66 High Street two-bedroom condominiums will be accomplished by renovating the historic brick mill building and the connecting Quonset building, and then demolishing the 3 other existing buildings on site and replacing them with 3 new buildings. Instead of capping contaminated soil on the site under an environmental land use restriction, we have opted for full soil removal so that the site will be entirely clean at a cost of over $1 million. We have met with neighbors all throughout the planning of the project, formally, informally, personally, and through the Guilford land use process so far at the Historic District Commission. We have been to HDC starting in January 2014 and have been before them 4 times. At our last meeting in January 2015, last month, the chairman took a poll and each member was in favor, with some members expressing concerns over building height. We await their final referral. We will show you during our presentation how we've sought to address those concerns. Many neighbors are here tonight, including some of those closest to the property who would be most affected. We have tried to anticipate the possible concerns such as drainage, traffic, and construction, and we'll get into how we will address those concerns during our presentation. While any changes to the site from its current empty status is of concern to the neighbors, we have asked them, and now you, to see that it was never going to stay vacant forever as a private park, It was not a performing asset as far as the town is concerned and was attracting vandalism. We believe our plan represents the best option for cleanup and conversion to residential redevelopment. We have a great responsibility to the town and neighbors to get this right. As permitted under the Town Center South Overlay Zone District, this industrial site will undergo a brownfields adaptive reuse to be redeveloped as residential condominiums. The purpose of the Town Center South overlay regulations was to promote this type of conversion to residential in residential areas where industrial uses of the past simply didn't fit the neighborhood or the town's plan of development. To encourage this conversion, the town approved standards to help cover the high costs of environmental remediation of the buildings and the contaminated soils on the site by allowing for increased residential unit density and a building height of 60 feet. These standards were applied in concert with low-impact development best management practices for green space, stormwater, and wastewater management to produce a site design that maximizes the reuse of existing disturbed areas while preserving open space. Even though the Town Center South Overlay Zone District regulations would allow 90 units of density on this site, this proposal is to construct 58 units in total. This will yield a density of 3.9 units per acre, which is equivalent to 1/4 acre zoning, matching the adjacent neighborhood. For comparison, the Foundry condos have 6.5 units per acre, and Griffin Square has 7.5 units per acre. The site design is organized around a center courtyard to create a village setting with surrounding open spaces and walking paths on the site. Bob, do you have the, no, Bob, so Bob, as I talk about it, just, yeah, just show the courtyard and. The courtyard. So the building site is configured with the buildings around a courtyard configuration, open space and walking paths around the site. The design has sought to work with the neighborhood by maintaining the Mill and Quonset building that is closest to existing residences in its current form with no change in height. Would you show, Bob, so the Mill building, where it says 66 High Street, and then the Quonset hut to the rear, which is the building that's closest to the neighbors on Halleck Street, will not undergo any change in height. We're not raising the roof, so to speak, on the Quonset building out of respect for the neighbors. Furthermore, the historic front mill building will be preserved and restored to historic preservation standards. New building construction is proposed as far away from neighbors as possible, some 240 feet from the public road. These buildings will be elevated with a first floor elevation 17.0, some 7 feet above the 100-year flood level and well above any contemplated sea level rise. Parking will be underneath the buildings to minimize impervious area and for aesthetics. The proposed project fully meets all of the standards of the Town Center South Overlay District and does not require any variances or exceptions to the town zoning code and will result in no filling of any wetlands. A traffic study found very low trip generation rates for development of this type with no negative impacts to the level of service of the adjacent streets and much less traffic compared to the Clinnipad days. Off-site, the project will connect its fully accessible walkways to the existing sidewalk network on High Street and South Fair Street to promote a walking community with easy access to the town green and train station. This transit-oriented development also meets the stated goals of the town to promote the economic viability and vibrancy of businesses around the green and the use of the Shoreline East train service by bringing approximately 120 people to live within easy walking distance. The project will add significantly to the town's grand list with an estimated taxable value of $40 million and yield very low demand on town services and schools. The property at 66 High Street represents a perfect site to apply the Town Center South Overlay Zone District regulations concept to convert a past industrial use to an attractive residential community supporting the village character of the town. Construction of the buildings and landscaped grounds will be of very high quality in every detail. Before we get to showing more of the detail of the architecture, we just wanted to go through some of the steps that we considered in developing the design process. Following is a quick summary of some of the factors we considered before arriving at the final design before you for 66 High Street. In no particular order, but keeping the historic mill building as is, not want to raise the roof on the Quonset building to have it loom over neighbors, not fill tidal wetlands, septic system as far from tidal wetlands as possible, remove adjacent eyesore, full environmental site cleanup, not just cap in place, follow LID stormwater best management practices, design for the flood zone and sea level change. Even though Town Center South would allow 90 units, that didn't fit in our village character approach. Create 3 separate buildings rather than one large U-shaped structure that would have been too industrial looking and not fit in the neighborhood. Bring down the scale of the, or apparent height of the new buildings by hiding the parking underneath with fill in front and recessing the upper floor units into the roof. Bob will go over this in more detail during his presentation. Also, by setting these buildings back from the road and neighbors, almost a full football field's width, with mature landscaping. We meet the allowable height limit of 60 feet, but buildings will also appear lower with the exposed front wall face of the new buildings matching that of the mill building. I guess in layman's terms, the mill building's a 2-story structure where it's can we see the perspective? No. Yeah. Yes. The height of the mill building as it's perceived as 2 stories with its roof line will match the appearance of the new buildings, which will have a 2-story structure and the start of its roof line. Also considered preserving open space by parking under the buildings, and lastly, to make it beautiful in architecture, site design, plantings, and quality in every detail. We'll now go through a more detailed presentation of the architectural style and how we meet specifically the regulations of the overlay district standards. Bob?
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, Guilford citizens. I want to take you through sort of a step-by-step. Ron has told you what we're going to tell you. I'm going to tell you it, and then Ron will summarize what we told you. And we're not even newspaper people. Okay, in this presentation, we'll demonstrate how 66 High Street meets the purposes and standards of the Town Center South Overlay District. show how the proposed development's massing minimizes the visual impact of the higher building density envisioned in the creation of the district. But first, we will illustrate how the project conforms to the Town Center South overlay districts by showing how it meets its stated purposes, provides the use consistent with the ordinance, and meets its stated standards. So you all know the ordinance. The purposes are as stated. Encourage the development of mixed-use, higher-density, transit-oriented development in proximity to the train station. And as Ron said, our property is a half mile from the train station and closer to the green, so it's easily walkable. 66 is a higher-density development, and it's within walking distance, a half mile of the train station. Second purpose is to promote increased service on Shoreline East. And by bringing housing to a location within walking distance of the train station, 66 High Street increases the potential demand for the train service. Your goal is to enhance the pedestrian opportunities and safety with sidewalks, walkways, greenways, and traffic calming. And as Siobhan will go in more detail, we have a private development, but within the private development, we will have an extensive walk system, establish a sensitive, and let me see if I can switch over here to the other clicker. There we go. All right, an extensive walk system, a hierarchy of marsh grasses, lawns, more formal plantings, or not formal, but more intense plantings. Siobhan will give us exactly, it says formal, and an enclosed courtyard. There's a complete network of handicap-accessible walkways and greenways encircling the property and connected to the town sidewalk system at the entry to the property at South Fair and High Streets. Another purpose is to encourage the environmentally appropriate economic development, and it's not just a park. It is an economic development. 66 High has been designed to be environmentally sensitive at a higher density of development. In addition to the landscape design mentioned above, there's no filling of wetlands. There's full remediation of the contaminated soils, and it would have been easier just to cap them, but this is full remediation. An advanced on-site septic system designed to meet the state's current standards for facilities near the coast. Importantly, the new construction, as Ron mentioned, is placed well above the 100-year storm levels at elevation 16, first floor elevation, in a 10-foot flood zone. And all drives and parking areas are located above recent past storm surges at an elevation of slightly less than 7 feet. So all the drives in the storms that we've had recently, Sandy, you would be able to drive out of the complex, so you would not be trapped there. An important purpose is preserving the historic resources, something very dear to my heart. There is the 1884 historic mill building that's being adaptively reused with particular effort to respect its historic exterior. There is what Ron has referred to as the Quonset building. It's not a circa 1940s building. Technical term, contributing structure, National Register Historic District, means if something has been recognized or not recognized as significant. We don't believe that that structure is contributing, but nonetheless we are keeping it because we think that it's important. It's important for the neighbors. It gives the continuity to the project, and it's kind of funky too. Encourage beautification and redevelopment along the Whitfield Street corridor. And our project does not directly abut Whitfield Street, that's no surprise to you, but the development replaces the derelict, and let's say derelict, you know, it's not all that pretty right now, and we're proposing something that we think is a far more aesthetically appropriate extension of the Guilford village character. Preserve the village character. 66 High Street has been designed to create the village character within the context of higher density. Again, higher density is important by a number of strategies. Sorry. Come on. Where did it go? There we go. Maintaining the historic mill building. Okay, that's the first important thing. respecting the volume and height of Mill and Marsh Walk. We're calling the Quonset hut Marsh Walk. The marketers will like that, we think. Leaving them unchanged because it's important. The neighbors have become accustomed to, particularly along Halleck Street, become accustomed to this as their backdoor neighbor. We're cleaning it up. We're not making it bigger. Dividing the higher density development, as Ron said, into 3 buildings, each of them larger than single-family house scale, but still scaled to make you feel that they are houses. And organizing all of the development around that central square. So it is now, it's a public space where previously there was just leftover space, and that's very important to creating that village character. And we're locating most of the parking underneath the structures. Let's say here. And there you go. So underneath each of the 3 main new buildings and within garages, that's the inverse of 36 is 64. 64% of the parking is completely hidden. The remainder is mostly in a lot that's completely hidden from any public way and screened by garages from the immediate neighbors. And the small existing lot here is partially screened by an entry wall. So we've done as much as we think you can possibly do on a project like this to keep parking out of sight. Locating the new structures to minimize the visibility from other portions of the neighborhood. And as Ron said, are closest to a public way, again, one of those technical terms, closest to the street, closest to the right-of-way, 240 feet. That's farther than probably any of us can pass a football. Reducing the size of the apparent buildings by placing the upper 2 floors in attic space, a typical strategy for single-family homes. And you look at the Whitfield house, and Henry Whitfield's house is a wonderful example of this, where he has 2 stories of structure and then effectively 2 stories of roof. This is called a section. For those of you who are not used to looking at at architect's drawings, you cut it like a cake, you look at it, go in that way, and you've got, I'm going to hit him in the head there, and you've got 2 stories, and you've got a large attic that potentially is 2 stories. And that's what we are doing. And there you see, we're bigger than Mr. Whitfield. There's no question about it. We are 12 units. Mr. Whitfield is 1 unit. So you have to expect that it's going to be somewhat bigger, but we've done everything that we know how to do to make this as house scaled as you can make a higher density development. And then finally, we do all of this in what an architect would call the vocabulary of wood frame construction that's typical in New England towns. And we'll go back into that in a minute. Okay, promote infrastructure. And that's another one of your purposes. The project has already encouraged natural gas service to be installed throughout the whole neighborhood. The goal is to protect the tidal marshes, the shoreline, Sluice Creek, and all other fragile ecosystems. And we have this is the edge of the marsh. We are not touching the marsh. That's very important. We will institute or we will apply for, we believe we will be approved, a permit to eradicate the invasive marsh grasses, which Ron could, I'm drawing a blank, Phragmites within the marsh, which improves the view, by the way, because they get rather tall. Enhance open spaces, another one of your purposes, and access to Long Island Sound for active and passive recreation. And a considerable amount of the site, of course, first of all, 3/4 of the site is marsh that's completely undeveloped. The part that is developed has been reserved in large amount for sensitively landscaped open spaces and the trail system. Okay, now what uses are allowed? Well, there are a number of uses, but housing is what's allowed, and we are providing 58 units of housing. Now, your standards. How do we meet your standards? Residential densities in general should be higher than what would otherwise happen, but not to exceed 6 per acre. As Ron had mentioned, we have 58 units, and that's 3.9 units per acre, or about 1/4 acre zoning. The building height shall be no more than 60 feet. and you give consideration, or 60 feet is important because you realize that we have to get above flood level. So as we mentioned, we have this building, 2 stories of wall, 2 stories of roof, a parking level below grade. We berm up in the front so you cannot see that entire story, so the apparent height, the zoning height is 60 feet because you know Guilford has a very precisely and defined height that takes the worst possible case, as opposed to taking the middle of a roof or the middle of a slope. It's from the lowest existing grade to the highest of the high point, and our apparent height is 50 feet. So you could look at it as being visually, we're 10 feet less than what you thought would be acceptable. And of course, this puts us at a 17-foot elevation, 7 feet above flood level for the first floor. Now, parking shall be designed to meet the needs, but you don't want too much parking. And we have 115 spaces, which is just about 2 per unit, and as I said before, 64% is within the structures. Coverage, you want higher coverage in general, but not more than 80%. In fact, we're almost the same impervious coverage at 17% as it was before, at 15%. So we've done it intensively, but overall, the percentages have not changed that much. The new development shall respect the potential for sea level rise, and as we said, we've raised the first floors. Okay. Design, site, landscape, and building, all aspects of the design shall be of the highest quality. We have designed around, as we said, a central courtyard. We've done every single move here to try to give you as high a quality addition to the town of Guilford as possible. Substantial network of walking paths and landscaped areas, high quality. The man-made site features, walks and walls, brick walls, high quality. And then, of course, the architecture. And there's your vernacular, your vocabulary of Guilford houses, clapboards, trim, elaboration of some details. It's all going to feel like it belongs in Guilford. You want, one of your requirements is to preserve wetland and migration. And there is no development occurring in the wetlands. The invasive species will be removed from the wetlands. New buildings will be raised above the 100-year flood level. Sewage disposal. The new, we have a self-contained sewage treatment system on site, and it meets the state standards for such systems near tidal wetlands. As far as diversity and affordability, our units will be between 1,500 and 2,900 square feet. Most of them are 2,000 to 2,200. And then very quickly, all of those mechanical, numerical things. You want parking areas, new parking areas, 15 feet back from property lines, and we are 30 feet at least back, that's the closest. Driveways at 5 feet, and we will meet that standard. Residential buildings requirement for less than 35 feet. We have no buildings residential less than that. For greater than 35 feet, your setback is 35 feet. We are at the closest 110 feet from a property line for a new building. So we're almost 4 times your standard. And from, of course, the street right-of-way, which is the thing that most people will perceive, we are 8 times at 240 feet. So it would be hard to envision a project that would be more sensitive to putting newer, bigger buildings away from existing residential areas. Certainly on a small site like this. Non-residential buildings, 30 feet of height, we have none of those, and the accessory buildings are going to be at least 12 feet from the property lines. In addition, the setbacks shall be landscaped, and they are landscaped. Now, okay, so that's all the mechanical. We have told you about all of your purposes, uses, and requirements. Now, how do you make this higher density building look like it fits in Guilford? First, you need to know a little bit. This is not totally philanthropy. We actually have to do something that makes money. And the goal is to be financially feasible and sell about 60 condominiums. We're applying for 68. 15 are in the existing buildings. And then we need 92,000 square feet of sellable new building. And we also can't just be in one big block that you can't get any windows in. We need windows for every bedroom, every living room, every dining room. And that means we need about 4,500, this is technical stuff, linear floor feet of perimeter. So if you have 4 floors that are 100 feet long, that's 400 linear feet of perimeter. Just gives you an idea. Okay. Would a typical condominium project work in Guilford? What does a typical project look like? Well, might look like the Avalon in Shelton, might look like Westfield Village in New Haven, might look like Anchor Reef in Branford, or it might even look like Riffing Square. But quite frankly, none of these we think would be right for the neighborhood. They're just too overpowering. Okay, given that, how can we get this much new building to fit within the site? And this gets into the thought process of how we got to where we are. So it's not just plopping something down and say, this would be a good idea, let's see if we can build it. It actually was thought through very carefully. First option. Okay, in fact, at one of our meetings with the Historic District Commission, somebody said, well, look at old mill buildings. Well, what's an old mill building look like? Typically 4 stories, 5 stories, maybe 3 stories, but it's one big rectangular slab. To get the number of square feet we need a 66-foot wide building, 380 feet long. That wouldn't give us enough perimeter, but let's see what it looks like. It looks like that. It's not so good. And it doesn't fit on the site. Doesn't fit. Okay, so this brown-green boundary, that's the marsh. This is the parking lot. The parking lot has the septic system under it. This edge right here is the closest that a building can get north by the rules of designing a septic system, so we can't get any further north. This building, if you saw it, would be up against the setback line from the wetland over here somewhere. Couldn't get any closer that way, can't go any further west, and the only place it can go is south, and it doesn't fit. But let's see what it looks like. 1-story, 4-story mill slab building. Well, that's what they look like. There's a 5-story one. It's your very typical New England prototype. It's appropriate in Willimantic. It's appropriate in Lowell. It's appropriate in Ansonia. It's not really. Oh, I'm sorry. And the condominium buildings, that's what they really are. They're one big long slab. You cut a couple balconies in, you change the materials a little bit, you put a couple funky dormers on the top, but it's a big mill building. And that's the default condo model, if you will. It lacks village character, and it's not right for Guilford. So option 2. Could we increase the village character while giving the density we need with discrete buildings defining a public and shared space? And this is that space that's coming into this project. So option 2 is one slab building and one 4-story block building, 66 by 280, and you can do the math, and this adds up to exactly the same amount of building, 66 by 100, same 92,000 square feet. It looks like that. So we get a public space, that's something, but we still have those 2 big guys. We don't still have enough perimeter, so if we were to design something like this, somebody wouldn't be getting the windows that they expect in a residence, and as it's short on perimeter. And what might it look like? Well, it looks the same because you're not seeing into it. It's still a big, blocky building that blocks High Street. It's not really right for the neighborhood. So let's go a little further. Let's break it into 3 4-story mill block buildings. Each is 100 by 100. Gives us actually a little more square footage, a little more perimeter that we need, and it looks like that. And that's starting to break things up. And you look at it that way and say, well, at least you've got a little way to see this, the view between the buildings. Feels a little like the Bronx maybe, or Pelham. It's not Guilford, but it's something. The brick, though, actually people ask us, don't you want to do more brick like the mill? Well, the more brick you do, the less special the mill is. So in a way, no, you don't want to do it like that. And so we go to another option. We say, okay, so now let's take the Whitfield model. Here's the Whitfield. Henry Whitfield's house, half wall, half roof. And there you go, half wall, half roof. And we can take those houses, and there you go. That's half wall, half roof. And it starts feeling, we lost a little bit of perimeter, we lost a little bit of square footage, so we're not building as much as we could fit in, but it's enough for us. It has just enough area and perimeter. And the 3 two-story house buildings with 2-story attics. And now you see, okay, this kind of reflects that. It's got a roof on it. This has more roof, but it's not so much more. The scale and view down High Street is much improved. It's starting to feel like it's just about right. And the new buildings are scaled, each 25'6" from the ground to the eave, 25'6" from the ground to the eave, and there's that berm in front, a little bit of a brick retaining wall, and then the ground raises to the ground floor there. So it is 50 feet from the ground to the top, but it doesn't feel like 50 feet because you're really seeing the 25'6" that you're seeing there, and you're seeing a roof that is much less significant. So it's proportioned like Henry Whitfield's house, half wall, half roof. And then you superimpose on that wood siding, trim, windows, porches with columns, an entrance, and it really does feel like it's a house. It's bigger than a house, but it feels like a house. And that's the wood-clad vocabulary. It sets a human scale for the development. So 2 stories in an attic, and there you go. You put the vegetation in, and it really starts disappearing too. It's that, like I say, I can't throw a football that far. I don't think any of us can. It's far enough away that it really is going to be about as inconspicuous as you could imagine for a project of this size. And then in the summer, of course, leave south, good bit, you could be anywhere. So we've discussed the general design, the scale and massing, the siting, and how we minimize the visible parking. And now we'll cover what is viewed from the street. This is very important to the Historic District Commission, but it should be important to all citizens because that's what makes your town, and every town, coherent. And the preferences here in Guilford for making it look the way it does. And we won't really talk too much about New England larger precedents, but just enough to say that you are consistent with the larger world. And so what's viewed from the street? Well, the important thing is we're not trying to build like a main street. It's not like every building has to line up and every building has to be the same size. That's not what we're doing. And we're not doing an object building where you're going to see it all around and it has to be very perfect and very special and very precious. It's closer to what you see back there. A building seen between buildings, behind buildings, a good distance away. This is 175 feet back. This is about 300 feet back, so it's somewhere in between there. And that gives you a real concrete example within Guilford. It's going to be a little more visible than that, a little less visible than the previous one. Okay, from the public way, there are 2 main views. There's the primary view at South Fair and High, and there's a secondary view at Norton and Halleck. The primary view is 240 feet. Secondary view is 340 feet, so that's a football field with the end zones. This is what it looks like now, or before we started excavating. This is nice. This is not so nice. This is what it will look like in the winter. This is looking the other way. Not great. It'll be much better. But the mill's still here. The volume of the old building is still here. We haven't changed what these neighbors will be seeing from their backyard. And even just that little view, just the hint that there are a few garages back there will be much less visible than what you see right now, which is a very pleasant thing for the Fair Street Foundry building. Okay, so Guilford precedents, what might be an appropriate, after you've said, you got to build all this and this is a nice volume, how do you determine what is Guilford? Well, Guilford is that siding and the trim, the siding and the trim, the siding and the windows, the siding and the windows. And different ways of manipulating them, but if you keep those rules and you keep those proportions, it will feel good in Guilford. And sometimes it gets a little fancier, and that's okay, because there are parts of Guilford that are plain, there are parts that are a little fancier. A common vernacular of wood-clad construction. And you see it all around town, 4 particular examples. Interestingly, note that all of them are, when you had enough money that you could build enough building, you built a symmetrical building, your door was in the front. If you had enough money, you'd build a big enough building, and you would probably have about half wall and about half roof, or about half wall and about half roof. That's what Guilford is. It's a common vocabulary, symmetrical, wood siding, trim, prominent roofs, often half the building height. So let's look at our building and how it compares to a couple of historic precedents. And I take allow me one building from out of town, 2 buildings from out of town, just so you get an idea. If you've ever been to Philadelphia, Mount Pleasant is in Fairmount Park. It's a very nice 18th century building. I pick it not because it's in Philadelphia, but because we had a drawing that we could compare to our building. And here we've lined up the ground line with the ground line, and you look at this building, which you would walk up to and say, it's a very nice house. I'd be happy to have it as a neighbor. And it's as tall as our building. It's a 1-family house, but it's as tall as our house, which is a 12-unit house. Now let's take another one. Up in Portsmouth, there's the Wentworth Gardner house, and hopefully some of you have seen that. It's a nice house. It's not nearly as big as Mount Pleasant, but it's actually not that different. There it is in the same scale, and ground line lines up. The roof isn't quite as tall, but look at this block right here. It actually feels taller because you feel the wall. You don't feel the roof that recedes. It doesn't feel nearly this big in person because the roofs recede. Roofs recede. Okay, so let's look at that again. We've got that piece, and it fits right in there. So the center of our building is a house-size piece, and that house in Guilford, this house is about that house's size. So there's a Guilford house plopped right in the center of ours, and then what we do is, like Mr. Whitfield's contemporary in New Haven, Theophilus Eaton, who had a big house with wings, we add wings. And there is a typical 19th century working class house. Our wings are typical 19th century working class size. And do we have those in Guilford? Well, there's one on Grave Street. Here's one on Whitfield Street. Here's one on South Fair. They're all a little bit different. They may be a little wider, but they're all basically that size. So we've taken the Guilford houses, and because we needed to have something to scale of 12 residences, we've glued a couple of residences together and then made them coherent, and that's what our project is. So we meet the purposes of your district, we meet your requirements, we meet your standards. The question is, within the parameter of higher density envisioned, does 66 High continue Guilford's traditions of high quality but varied design? And you look at Whitfield and you say, remember that when Mr. Whitfield built, his neighbors were like this. This is Plymouth Plantation, meant to virtually replicate the period of Henry Whitfield's house. It's larger. It had different materials. These are wood, it was stone, it had windows, my goodness. And yet it's an icon of Guilford. And a living neighborhood, a living town grows and changes. When Medad Holcomb built his house, 1848, he was doing something bigger than his neighbor. And yet it works. Was he wrong? No, because the living neighborhood grows and changes. And when Edwin Leete built his house, it's different in every way from Medad's. But the joys of Guilford are that the variety of the buildings within that overall vocabulary, wood, trim, simple, vernacular construction, it works. This is what we've endeavored to do, meet that standard, providing a design of the highest quality by what we hope is a skilled application of the principles of precedent and applying it to the new situations particular to this project. And then think one more thing about Mr. Lathrop's house. Here is his neighbor. Did he break some terrible rule by adding side lights, heaven forbid, side lights, a fan window, some additional ornament? Well, we took that as an example and say, well, maybe you can use some of those elements to unify a composition. We go to the Guilford precedents and we apply them in a way that we think works for this project in this neighborhood. Different buildings call for different levels of ornament. There's room for individualism. 66 High Street meets the objectives, and we believe it extends the distinguished architectural vocabulary. And at the end, we will ask for your endorsement of the project. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Bob. Adriana, can I see the site plan? We're just now going to summarize our technical presentation. We're going to go through the civil engineering aspects, my favorite part, and then Siobhan's going to walk us through the landscaping planting design. So if you can pull up, I think it's slide 3. There we go. Relative to the site plan design, as I mentioned, we're building around a center courtyard with the buildings raised to a first floor elevation here for all of the new buildings, way above the base flood, 100-year flood elevation, parking underneath to reduce the amount of impervious area on the site, as well as hide the parking. We have a ring access road at the request of the fire marshal and the town engineer, basically providing him all-season access to the back sides of the buildings here that help provide, and that'll also be part of a walking, this will be pervious pavers, but part of a walking trail, but also designed to withstand fire truck loads and tie into the other walking trails on the property, as well as the regular sidewalks through the property. The main traffic flow, all of the traffic flow, I should say, it was designed to enter and exit South Fair High Street, the corner, with a nice new entryway, landscaped, and with raised kind of Belgian blocks to let you know that you've left the public way and you're entered the private development in that area there. As I say, all the traffic for the property will use the current main egress. The fire department asked for an emergency access down to a right-of-way that exists off of Halleck Street. That'll be a gated, closed vehicle access just for emergency. We will probably have a man door, a doorway in the fence, just to enable residents that are headed for the train station to exit more easily the south side of the property. Stormwater management on site, largely hidden from view, but a lot of pervious pavement, a lot of infiltration basins, all of the low-impact development best management practices, grass swales, subsurface infiltration, perforated pipes to promote all of the stormwater on the property is managed on site. At our property line boundaries, everything will grade from those boundaries onto our property. There'll be no runoff directed at any of the neighbors' properties along any of the boundaries. And then once it's on our property, treated whereas it's not now currently treated. an advanced wastewater treatment system. Won't go into any great detail, but it's a nutrient removal system, a biological nutrient removal system, and then a large gravel, raised gravel infiltration bed system in that area. Again, all managed on site. Full utilities servicing the facility, of course. New gas lines run in the neighborhood. Hopefully some of the neighbors were able to tap into that. Natural gas service for the property, electric cable, city water, public water, and then our on-site wastewater system as well. The site walkways and trails fully accessible and then connected to the town's network of walkways to take you to the green or to the train station. No filling of any tidal wetlands whatsoever. You know, a project that doesn't have any wetlands impacts, pretty rare. And then as far as construction phase operations, getting us to the point where we're fully built out, we'll have on-site controls, temporary sediment controls, tall construction fencing with screening along the perimeter to try to keep as much of the noise and dust on the property. We'll have dust control. We'll be following standard work hours per the town ordinance, as well as noise levels. So the civil engineering aspects of the project are in support of the architecture and the landscape architecture, but a safe roadway network system to traverse and enter the buildings as well, and then the perimeter roads and access for emergencies. Siobhan's going to take us through her landscaping ideas.
Well, as been noted, this is a very rich plan. It's very heavily planted. It's also been thoughtfully planted to reflect either the vegetation that is there and or native vegetation, so that all of the outside planting is not only native, but it's salt tolerant, so it reflects what's there and extends in. We're extending the wet meadow grasses on the perimeter. Lawn is limited to areas of passive recreation, and very specifically this front entry area so that it reflects the neighborhood, whereas all of the interior, the raised portions, the very narrow planting areas here between the buildings and these rear areas here are all planted with ground covers and shrubs, not lawn. It's part of the strategy here is to increase the texture and the diversity, and so emphasize the landscape and balance the masses of the building. One of the things that we've also done specifically in response to the Historic Districts Commission's concerns for the sizes of these buildings, most of the trees are specified at 3 to 3.5 inch caliper, which is the size of a normal street tree planting, but we actually have had these 4 trees, which frame the public view in, are going to be installed at 8 to 9 inch caliper. They won't be quite as big as the renderings. When they first go in, they will within maybe 5 years, but they'll go in at about 30 to 35 feet height. So you really will have a very mature instant landscape as you get that public view. These additional 4 trees here within the courtyard will be a similar size, again, to create a canopy that defines that as a volume and screens the view to the higher buildings around. This courtyard is designed as a social space for the entire community with seating in the center. In fact, Kenny, I didn't even know that you'd done the Smoothie Foundation Garment Factory, but my daughter lived there. And having watched how the courtyard there works as a social space, largely with people with dogs, we do envision this as a community amenity. I will say it is the shape and size that it is, because it also is fire access. The fire truck has to be able to get in and turn around. It also serves as drop-off so that these units here and through here can have immediate access for anybody coming to visit who isn't using the garages. And as been noted before, there are ramps up onto these raised plinths so that any physically challenged person can make it into these units, which of course have elevators, so all of the entire site is accessible, as are ways out to these public ways and walkways around through the marshes. And the other thing that we've done is heavily landscape along the perimeters, any place where you have a public potential view in, as well as screening on the back sides of the garages here. We've also located all of the lighting. Obviously, all of the entries and walkways are lit, but they're night sky friendly fixtures with cutoffs, and they've been located away from the property line, so there should be no spill onto the neighboring property with nighttime lighting. And the outer perimeter is not lit at all, so again, you're not changing the nighttime view from across the marsh or the lake. Yes. So, I think, Ron.
Adriana, can you go to the view from High Street and then Winter? Just to kind of promote Siobhan's work here a little bit, we spent a lot of time on this view in particular, especially at Historic Commission meetings and things. As we mentioned, the mass or the volume of the buildings needed to make the project economically viable require a certain cube or a certain volume. We've worked to try to keep the buildings closest to the neighbors, the Mill Building and the Quonset Building, unchanged, so our new buildings are off in the distance, and then working with Bob's architectural design and Siobhan's landscape design, that the view from the public way won't be intimidating, and what you will see, I believe, will be attractive. Can you show us a summer view? Even less visible in the summer, more or less attractive, I guess, your taste, but the landscaping that Siobhan's selected, that we've committed to, of mature trees right off the bat, will have this project looking like it's belonged there almost immediately. By way of summary, the overlay zone was developed to promote the conversion of industrial property that doesn't fit either the neighborhood nor the town's plan of development. The overlay zone also encourages higher densities and heights to help pay for this, and to promote the economic vitality of downtown businesses by creating a critical mass of people within walking distance to downtown. Our design fully meets these standards without the need for any variance from any of the town standards. The buildings are large, there is no argument, but with the building design, remember half wall, half roof, the football field distance from the street, and with Siobhan's landscaping, the buildings will be largely shielded from public view. And as we went through, what you do see will be nice. And in fitting with Guilford's Town Center South District and overall town character. Furthermore, when viewed in the big picture, we ask you to consider that this project provides for the conversion to residential use in an area of residential uses. It maintains the quiet, clean, calm vibe of the neighborhood that never has to, again, worry about what industrial use might return. Our target market of quiet, empty nesters is also good for the neighborhood setting. It's a good overall design that complements the town and the area. It's a site of 15 acres capable of absorbing this density. It is not on a main road and only has public frontage on one side. It fits the Town Center South purposes to a T. It brings economic vitality and energy to the downtown, and it provides a significant tax boost for the town. In total, we believe that it's a great project for Guilford and designed to respect and complement the town and the neighborhood. We ask for the approval of the Planning and Zoning Commission of our plans for the redevelopment of 66 High Street, and we look forward to your support. Thank you. That concludes our presentation. We have letters to submit to the secretary from residents, nearby adjacent residents that can't be here tonight, but if it's okay, I'll save those for after the public input portion. Sure. Okay.
Okay. So, do we have any questions right off the bat that we can think of? I know I've got a couple. So who can tell me a little bit more about the septic treatment system? So is this a, like a xenon, no?
No, it's as a matter of fact, this is like the witching hour. Tonight, P&Z, tonight is also WPCA, because they got held over because of the snowstorm. Our project is being considered tonight at WPCA, and so our septic system, we hired an engineering firm by the name of Dymar, which coincidentally is the same company the town is using to look at other septic system areas to help support, like the Navtech site and some of the other portions of proposed Town Center South development. But it's actually, the treatment system's, I think, manufactured by General Electric, but it's a nutrient removal system I'm going to say a film contactor, housed in a building in a kind of a pre-engineered system that's brought to the site, housed in a building that removes nutrients from the wastewater, and then the cleansed effluent is infiltrated through the raised gravel beds.
So it removes it in what way? Bacterially or
yes.
Physically removes it? Is there something that's going to need to be removed from the site?
Because our wastewater designer was going to try to stop by. Is that Mark? Is you in the back? Perfect.
Good.
Guess who's here?
Mark gets lucky. And he just got here, too. He only walked in 5 minutes ago.
This is Mark Landcorp of Dymar Engineering.
We're even. So, Mark, what can you tell us?
Well, good evening. Mark Landcorp for the public record. I really wasn't expecting to speak tonight. I was expected to be at WPCA most of the night, but
surprise.
What I can tell you about the system itself, it's what we call a membrane bioreactor. It's developed by GE. It's one of the probably top-notch AT systems that you can buy today. It's a pre-engineered system, but pre-engineered only goes as good as knowing your product. And the product that GE puts out is by far one of the finest products around. It's what we call ultrafiltration. It's what we call hollow fiber system. So the membrane itself purifies the water, no different than this. And I can tell you, I've been before towns like Greenwich, Stamford, and I've sat and I've drank the water that comes out of the system.
And good for you.
I can tell you it stays that way, and the reason is because of the technology itself. Guilford, being a coastal community, has to really look at its water resources, just like any other community. But there's, when you're talking about coastal treatment, You don't want to be messing around with the treatment. There's a lot of other technologies that are out there, what we call sequential batch reactors. There are fixed media membrane type systems, and there's even what we call a fixed membrane type system. It's not what I would recommend. And the reason is because we are in the coastal system, and what you need to do is you need to be able to bring your nitrogen and phosphorus levels down to a level that actually are palatable to DEP.
Palatable.
Long Island Sound, the Office of Long Island Sound at DEP, believe me, looks at the treatment and what we're doing here. And the fact is that we'll be taking nitrogen down to levels of 6, phosphorus below 5. Most systems are not able to do that.
Yep.
So, and it's simple. We try to keep it simple. It will go into what we call an equalization basin. Equalization basin basically takes the diurnal pattern, flattens it out, goes to the treatment plant. It really is an activated sludge process that conventional activated sludge followed by a membrane. And the membrane is basically, I hate to say, it's like a pantyhose, okay? Except it's reversed. Where if you poured something into a pantyhose, you basically leave all your organic in the pantyhose, and what you got is you got permeate or clean water coming out. What the membrane does is absolutely the opposite. It uses a vacuum suction on it so that it actually pulls the permeate clean water through the membrane into the hollow fibers, and the hollow fibers then, the permeate then goes out as clean water. And it goes through a UV disinfection system before it goes to a pump station that actually disperses the water into an ultra sand filter that's out in the parking lot.
So does something need to be trucked away?
No.
Does it have to be managed? Is there going to be some?
Yes. Reality is that there is not anything out there that can be operated without an operator, okay? But with membrane technologies, these have high sophisticated PLC systems, they're project logic control systems that operate the pumps and everything. The operator is there mandated by the state at 15 hours a week. But the system can be remotely operated from anywhere through a computer technology. It's all remote. So an operator could be, and he gets what we call is a yellow warning, which is basically, there's something at the plant, you got to come down, you got to be here tomorrow or the next day. Well, he can log into the plant, actually see how the plant's operating, and being able to control everything in the plant from remote. So that's the technology itself. It's inside the building. We're going to hear, folks are going to talk about, well, am I going to get odor? No. I can tell you that we've probably, if you want to put a plant in front of a school, you can tell you that you're not going to want to do that in front of a school because everybody's going to complain about it because of odor. We have 7 plants right now that are operating in schools, sitting right in the middle of the campus. So odor's not going to be an issue because of the way the plant operates and works. In terms of even the septic tank itself, we have a tank that's out in the field. We're using what we call a peat bed odor control natural system, where the air that comes from a septic tank, people know you can sit out in a commercial lot and you can end up sometimes smelling that septic tank. Well, the problem with it is that they don't properly deal with the odor through the tank, and the way we do it is through convection through a peat bed. Sand and peat will naturally strip out odor, and we're doing that because it's in a residential neighborhood. So we want to make sure that people aren't even going to know that this plant is operating, is even there. And in fact, it becomes part of the component of looking like a garage. So,
of the 6 units that you mentioned operating in schools, do any of them ever operate outside the parameters set forth by the state of Connecticut?
Nope.
Always within?
Always within.
Good answer. The operating system is in one of the buildings, you said. Is it one of those buildings there?
No, I should be so lucky.
One of the garage.
It's actually in the garage. It's going to be up here.
There's a bay of garages along that side into the last garage, closest to the marsh.
Okay, so it's not near any of the neighbors' houses.
Okay.
And the septic tank and bed is even further from the neighbors. along the fire truck access road as well.
Now, that fire truck access road, that ring that goes around the outside of the property, that's also the road that they're going to use to get to their garages, is that correct?
No.
So how do they get to the garages? I was trying to see access from the courtyard, or what about those two back ones? That's what I was wondering about. The only thing I see is a problem with parking is on holidays, 2 spaces per unit. That would be problematic.
So this is part of the main driveway access. That ends, and then this.
Oh, okay.
That's the fire truck loop.
I see it.
The septic beds are going to be over here, furthest from any of the neighbors as well.
So they're right on the marsh?
I'm sorry?
They're right on the marsh?
Well, they're in Upland, but they're in this vicinity here.
But what comes out of them will be just like drinking water?
No, that's all the flow will come here, it'll get pumped up to the treatment building, and then infiltrated through the raised gravel bed.
Gotcha. Okay. Questions?
You have several memos from departments.
Okay, just no other questions over there, George?
Is this, because your primary marker is empty nesters, is this age restricted?
No.
Are there any rental units?
Not contemplated, no.
You're not contemplating rental
No,
units?
I mean, if someone were to buy one and then rent it, there'd be, I guess, restrictions in condominium documents, perhaps. We haven't gotten that far. But it's not meant to be a rental complex.
And do you have any plans to expand or build additional buildings in the future?
No.
Do you have room for it?
No.
Even
not
over
on
the
this
septic
property.
system?
What's that?
Even over in the area with the septic system?
No, you can't put a building over top of the leaching bed or
You can move
anything.
the septic system. Anyways, I just didn't know if that was your future
No,
plans.
this is it.
Maybe this answers, there are a couple things. One, the septic system is designed for that many bathrooms. So we can't expand the number of bathrooms without expanding the septic system. The area that is lawn there to the west of the parking lot is also the retention area for stormwater. So we need that too. So we really have used, even though it looks like most of the site is natural, even the natural areas are being used for something to complete the project.
Are there any on-site managers, or is it strictly?
Well, we will have to have a licensed wastewater treatment operator that won't be there all the time, but as needed, mandated as well. No, there's no superintendent or anything contemplated.
Of the 15 acres, how much of that is salt?
Salt marsh, I think on the order of 8 and 7 upland. What you can see on that line is basically the upland. Everything else, we didn't go deep into the marsh to look, but it looks like it's all tidal marsh out towards the West River.
Yep. Frank? Ray? All set. George, what kind of letters do you have for us?
You have a bunch of them there.
I bet you do. Who feels like it? Frank, you want to do a little reading?
Let's start with the big one.
Yeah.
All right. Take a stab at it. This is from Kevin McGee, the environmental planner in the Guilford Planning and Zoning. The applicant has completed a checklist to guide low-impact development, LID, best management practices, and is utilizing several of the recommended practices. These practices consist of the utilization of pervious pavement and porous pavers and grass-covered porous grid pavers, which allow for stormwater to infiltrate directly into the ground and not run off the site. The utilization of these products also serves as a model to other developers regarding the utilization of the products. The conversion of the site from an industrial use to a residential increases the impervious surface cover uplands portion of the lot from 41.85% to 47.1%. The stormwater management system consists of a catch basin and roof leaders with perforated pipe and discharging to infiltration basins designed to treat the first 2 inches of rainfall. The increase in impervious surface increases the stormwater runoff rates for the 10, 25, and 50-year storms by 1.21, 2.28, and 5.88, respectively. The plans for the project have sedimentation and erosion control procedures that are in compliance with 273-97B subsection 6 of the zoning regulations. John Goucher, analyst with the Connecticut Department of Energy and Environmental Protection Long Island Sound Program, raised several concerns during the review of the application. 1, the applicant needed to demonstrate that either the project does not have any adverse impacts on future water-dependent development activities and opportunities, including public access, or that the potential adverse impacts have been mitigated or should be considered acceptable by the Commission. 2, another relevant policy is to be addressed is to manage, quote, to manage coastal hazard areas so as to ensure that the development proceeds in such a manner that hazards to life and property are minimized, end quote. CGS Section 22A 92B 2F. Accordingly, the applicant should include an analysis describing how placing 58 new residential units in a coastal flood hazard area is consistent with this policy. 3, concerned that the 180-foot-long proposed retaining wall along the access drive may meet the statutory definition of a shoreline flood and erosion control structure to be inconsistent with the Coastal Area Management Act. Proposals for new residential developments should be located and designed such that no future shoreline airment would become necessary and unavoidable over the useful life of such a project. As configured and designed, the proposal appears to be inconsistent with the policies regarding the use of shoreline flood and erosion control structures. Luch's Consulting Engineers addressed John Goucher's concerns in a letter dated February 15, 2015. In a conversation with John Goucher on February 17, 2015, John indicated to me that he spoke with his supervisor and they feel that the explanation in the letter are consistent with the Coastal Management Act. In order to make sure the coastal resources are protected, I'm recommending the following conditions of approval. 1, a licensed engineer shall oversee the installation of the underground stormwater management system along with the installation of the porous pavers and pavement and grass-covered porous grid pavers to verify that the construction was conducted in accordance to the plans and best management practices. The licensed engineer shall provide a final report to the zoning enforcement officer. 2, the Town of Guilford zoning enforcement officer should be notified to inspect the sedimentation and erosion control measures prior to any site construction. 3, copies of the weekly erosion control inspections and post-storm inspections within 24 hours of end of the storm with a rainfall amount of 1 inch or greater shall submit to the zoning enforcement officer and the environmental planner. The permittee shall immediately inform the zoning enforcement officer of problems involving sedimentation, erosion, downstream siltation, or any other adverse impacts which develop in the course of or are caused by work herein authorized. The report shall provide the following minimum information. A, date of inspection. B, amount of rainfall. C, report of any problems. D, list of action items. E, resolution of action items. The inspection shall be conducted until the vegetation is established to the satisfaction of the inland wetland enforcement officer. 4, to assure the future compliance of the stormwater management system in accordance to section 273-75F of the zoning code. A, upon approval of the site plan application, but prior to the commencement of any work, the applicant shall execute an agreement and file a bond with Planning and Zoning Commission to guarantee completion and maintenance of the work required by the approved stormwater management plan. The engineer of record shall submit a cost estimate of construction of this work to the zoning enforcement officer. B, a written maintenance and operation manual for all the stormwater management systems located at the subject site. The manual should provide provisions for yearly inspection, maintenance of the stormwater system, and yearly reports to the town engineer. The maintenance schedule should include, but not be limited to, weekly, monthly, and quarterly inspections of the property for litter, monitoring the dumpster and outside storage areas, monitoring of each of the catch basins, the removal of accumulated material and non-native invasive species in the infiltration basins and energy dissipators. The maintenance plan needs to provide a statement that the stormwater management plan will be reviewed annually so that the inspection maintenance requirements may be modified and that any changes to the plan will require approval of the town engineer. C, and, quote, as-built drawing, end quote, of the completed stormwater system prepared in accordance with section 273-75F stormwater management subsection 6 under construction. D, the applicant shall file a maintenance covenant on the land records as required by section 273-75F stormwater management subsection 7, maintenance covenants of the Town of Guilford zoning code.
Thanks, Frank. You know, while you were talking, I was reminded of the dumpster issue we had to deal with for a couple hours 2 meetings ago. Where are the dumpsters going to be on this property? And are they near the neighbors?
We have, currently, there's a driveway. This property has an easement over property here out to Halleck Street. We have no intention of using that access. It's narrow. It also serves as a driveway for this house here. But in this corner, we're going to have a fenced dumpster area over here. And each building will have like a dumbwaiter kind of system.
We'll have an internal trash system.
In the garage level of each of these units as well.
So there are none of these, that dumpster nor any others are going to be near a neighbor's house?
No.
Okay. What other letters do we have? Oh.
How do you remove the trash from underneath?
Magic.
I don't have
The garages that are underneath there, the height is only 10 feet.
We'll have to roll it out to the main driveway area.
You see in the city, those ones you push in.
Okay. Yep.
Very sharp. You want to read?
This letter is from Dennis Johnson, dated February 18th today, subject to 66 High Street LLC. The applicant's wastewater system for the proposed housing project has been designed as a community sewage system. The Connecticut DEP has jurisdictional authority over the approval of the community alternative technology wastewater system and is currently reviewing the applicant's design plans and specifications. The proposed water design and soil conditions have been reviewed by the Health Department and WPCA. It is recommended that the applicant's proposed special permit be approved with the following conditions. 1, that no building permits will be approved until a final determination approval of the wastewater system is issued by the Connecticut DEP. And 2, that prior approval of certificate of occupancy for any dwelling unit, the owner and/or permittee of the community wastewater system shall enter into a wastewater management agreement with the Guilford Water Pollution Control Authority to establish sufficient escrow funds for operation, maintenance, and repair of the wastewater system.
Thank you. Appreciate that. We have one from Mr. Portley. Who feels like reading that?
I'll read it.
Thank you.
To Planning and Zoning Commission from James A. Portley, P.E., dated February 18th, RE 66 High Street, special permit and coastal area management site plan, development of existing factory to residential condominiums. There are a couple of issues that will need further attention if the special permit application is approved. The first is redesign of the entrance at the intersection of South Fair Street and High Street. The layout on the plan look attractive, but as proposed, it would hinder snow plowing operations on South Fair Street. The entrance is out in the right-of-way. It needs to be pulled back to leave the extension of the west gutter on South Fair Street clear so that plows can deposit snow on the grass shoulder or on the south side of High Street. The overall stormwater management plan is well conceived, but the existing stormwater system serving High and Norton Streets must be properly documented so that the existing prescriptive drainage rights through the 66 High Street property are preserved to guarantee the town's ability to maintain the street drainage system. There is no argument that the traffic report's conclusion that once developed, the impact of projected traffic will have minimum effect on the level of service to the neighborhood streets. It is not true, however, that the neighborhood will be unaffected by truck and vehicle traffic generated during the construction process. Rather than trying to conceive and impose a traffic management plan on the developer that could prove contentious and unenforceable, it is suggested that prior to final approval of the site plan and special permit, the developer's engineer submit a traffic management plan for review to the town staff that addresses all traffic issues of concern, which then, when vetted and approved, becomes an ongoing condition of the special permit.
Thank you. So what do we make of this? You have to change your entrance to satisfy Mr. Portley?
Well, first of all, I don't really believe that it snows here in Connecticut. No, just by current practice with the site being vacant, he's saying the town comes and pushes snow down South Fair and piles it up on High Street, on the south edge of High Street. So we have to make accommodations for that. And I was telling him that, you know, we provide area for snow storage. It's a detail that I'd like to work out with him that will take a blow of that area and get down to specific detail of what works for the town plowing system. At the very least, we will not diminish the town's ability to make the corner and continue down South Fair. But the nice entrance will not be compromised. We'll come to a conclusion satisfactory to him and to us as well.
Wow. So he has some barricades in front of you. Okay, so you're okay with all this stuff. You have another letter, Tim?
There's more here, yeah.
Give it up.
Does someone else want to read?
What needs to be read now?
There's something from Wayne Vitry, the assistant fire chief, I think.
Yep, and there's also one from Mr. Goucher.
And this says it's from Wayne Vitry to George Crawl.
Yep. Okay.
After discussions with the developers of the 66 High Street project, Guilford Fire Department has received and reviewed the proposed drawings dated January 19, 2015. As previously discussed with the developer, GFD for Guilford Fire Department recommends that the Planning and Zoning Commission include the following comments as conditions of approval. Fire lanes be established as designed and approved by GFD. All travel surfaces, including the Fire Department access road, maintain compliance with the Sutphin Corporation SPH 100 specifications provided to the developer by GFD. All travel services, including the Fire Department access road and substructures, be designed to support 80,000 pounds. The Fire Department access road to be cleared of snow and ice concurrently with the general travel parking area. Fire Department access road width to be increased to 21 feet over the entire length. Aware of all this?
Yeah, Wayne called me yesterday.
Fire Department access road final structural design to be approved by GFD in support of the Sutphin Corporation SPH 100 recommendations. No planting of trees between the traveled/parking area and the face of the buildings. No planting of trees between buildings which will inhibit GFD access. GFD to coordinate with the developer the final size and type of island curbs in the travel parking areas in order to accommodate fire apparatus placement. GFD to coordinate with the developer the final position in compacted areas as required in support of the Fire Department access road in order to accommodate fire apparatus placement. GFD to coordinate the number of fire hydrants and final locations to include the addition of one fire hydrant in the courtyard. Developer provides a fire suppression standpipe system, finally approved by GFD. The developer to provide documentation to support adequate public water supply for fire protection. The final location of the fire department connections to be determined by GFD.
So,
Signed, Wayne Vitry, Assistant Chief.
all those nice pictures we saw, will any of them be impacted by the fire department's regulations?
No, in fact, we met with Wayne and Charlie early on in the process and actually produced a drawing showing how their ladder truck serves and can reach every aspect of these buildings here. The access way along the backside, this is a compacted, full weather, full fire truck load capable roadway that we're though going to plant as, it's a concrete block system that supports the fire truck load, but you're able to then put topsoil and gravel in it so that it doesn't look like it's not a paved road. So that's what he's talking about, that we've committed to. Standpipes in the buildings we had already discussed and committed to as additional fire protection. The buildings will be fully sprinklered, first of all. He's asking about a second fire hydrant. We weren't certain of that with the standpipe aspect of it as well, and so it's. I think Wayne might say that, you know, our fire sprinkler engineer will sit down with him and discuss whether the standpipe is a wet pipe system or dry pipe, and that might preclude the need for the extra fire hydrant. But I think that he, if he were here, would say that, you know, we've cooperated in every aspect with him as well. He's pretty expensive to talk to, though.
Yeah, I know, and you have to do what he wants, or else. Good. We have another letter. You got that, Frank?
Last one I'll go through. This is from John Goucher. A little redundant because Kevin kind of already mentioned it in his, but I'll read it into the record.
Thank you.
This is from John Goucher to Kevin McGee, 66 High Street. Kevin, and this is dated February 18th. Kevin, we have reviewed the above referenced proposal for the consistency with the Connecticut Coastal Management Act, CGS, sections 22A-90 through 22A-112 inclusive. Policies including the applicant's responses to several questions we raised seeking additional information. We agree that the proposed 180-foot long by 18-inch high wall along the portion of the entry drive does not meet the statutory definition of a shoreline flood and erosion control structure. The subject site is low-lying and adjacent to a salt marsh. As such, the site will likely experience not only periodic nuisance flooding, but also less frequent severe flooding. The site is designed to deter both nuisance and significant flooding events. However, future residents may seek to eliminate or significantly reduce the flooding potential after experiencing repeated flooding, which can only be accomplished by constructing a new shoreline arrayment, i.e. seawalls, retaining walls, earthen berms, bulkheads, or riprap, under the existing statutory construct. Such structures are not permissible for the protection of residential structures constructed after 1995. Therefore, without a change in the statutes, any future interest to protect the site from flooding would have to be accomplished through non-structural measures. It's important that the CSPR record include reference to the fact that constructing future shoreline flood and erosion control structures at this site would be inconsistent with CCMA policies. With this understanding, the proposal does not appear to be inconsistent with CCMA policies. Please let me know if you have any questions or if you need additional information. John Goucher, Environmental Analyst 3, Long Island Sound Program.
Thanks, Frank.
Done.
Good job. Thank you so much. What do you got?
What does that say?
It says that they're going to get some flooding and that they can't put up seawalls because that's not allowed.
You know what you're getting when you build this, so you're not going to be allowed to add additional protections.
Right. If you want to live on the water, this is something you're going to live with, even if you are 17 feet up or whatever you are. All right. So what else we got? Anything else? No. Questions? Insights? Ray? Anything? I know. We're going to jump right on that. Yeah. All right. We don't have any more questions, so we're going to open up some questions from the public. Do we have anyone that would like to ask questions, perhaps? Please. Join us, and the one favor I ask everyone who comes up, just give us your name. Yes.
Name and address for the record.
Name and address. Hi, good evening. John Terudis. I am resident. My wife Paul and I reside at 58 High Street, the property adjacent to the east of the 66 High Street project. And a couple questions regarding access, and one is traffic study. I didn't hear anything about a traffic study being completed and projected cars on the street, but also is there a little more information about the parking lot area, the existing parking lot area that is right next to me, right next to my property? I see some changes there. I see parking changes. Question about the setback from the property line and how that's achieved.
Good question.
Could you, just for my benefit, could you point out where your property is on the map? Is it there?
Sure, it's adjacent right here.
Okay. Good. Thanks.
Good. So what do you got, guys?
parking that exists adjacent to this property will actually be pulled back a couple of feet from, it's right now currently almost right on the property line, the pavement through here. We'll be pulling it back a couple of feet, it'll be reduced from its current configuration. I believe there'll be less pavement right adjacent to his property and pulled back. It's there as an existing condition. It's an important aspect of the parking for these structures here that are removed from this available parking as well. It'll be fenced and landscaped. He currently maintains a beautiful hedge through there that we won't be disturbing. And then as far as this, I believe, is his main access driveway. As I mentioned, under the operation of Clintipad, that used to be used by the factory site. It won't be used as an egress by us anymore. He'll have almost exclusive use of that driveway.
So the reason there is no required setback is it's pre-existing?
Correct.
He also asked about the traffic study.
The traffic study was submitted as part of our full application, and Jim Portley commented on it, I guess, in concurrence with the findings that these developments generate very low peak hour traffic generation rates, and no change to the level of service. South Fair and High Street are highly functioning, rural roads, and we won't be changing that level of service. And the traffic report is in the package.
Now, can you sort of give me a historical perspective? I know that I wasn't here when it was Clintipad, but if there were 200 people working there, did that mean there were 200 cars going in and out at shift changes, or?
Nor was I here. I'm not going to pretend. Actually, just in our discussions with some of the neighbors who have lived here, yes, I mean, we've got aerial photos of the site full of cars. 200 cars through the number of shift changes, tractor trailers, bringing raw material in and finished product out for certain. Box trucks and things are visible in those photos. A bunch of processed tanks. You've seen some of the pictures, but they're bringing alcohol in and different types of chemicals used in their medical products as well. So yes, this road network used to manage a lot of traffic from the Clintipad property, and so this use will be a drastic reduction in that traffic from the height of the Clintipad days.
So I guess that's one of the things we wrestle with, is what is the snapshot moment that we want to capture that says that's the way it should be. Right now it's not used, so there's no traffic, and so if I were an adjacent neighbor, I'd want to keep it this way. But prior to that, there was a couple hundred cars at least a day, or more. And we have to wrestle with that, and we're going to wrestle with that.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, if I remember correctly, in the initial study report for the district, it said that this sort of development inherently increases traffic above a zero level. So it was already recognized in the study for creating this district.
Right. All right. Does that answer the question, yes? Or?
I'm still a little confused about the parking and where it starts. Is there a pushback from the property line or not, because it's already existing?
Right. He says that you're moving the parking back a couple of feet away from the property line.
Correct.
About how many is a couple of feet? 3 feet?
I don't have a blow, but on the order of 2 feet, let's say, further back from his property than it is now.
Okay.
So the screen will be back 2 feet further.
No, the fence will probably go at the property line, but the actual start of pavement will be away from its, further away from his property than it is now.
Is that good? Yes. Okay. Who else has questions? Come on down. Nobody else?
Yeah.
Okay. Here we go. Thank you. Got it. Someone.
My name is Jeremy Long. I'm 15 Alec, also a bordering thing. I just want to know more about where the dumpster is going to be. So I'm right here. I have a couple questions. One is the dumpster. Two, how will the driveway be shut off? Like, will there be a fence, or is it just at people's discretion? And then my last question is lighting. How much lighting is going to be here right into our houses there?
I'll answer the lighting question. The lighting is not on the property line side of the drive, it's on the other side, and they are cut-off fixtures. I've got photometrics, but there should be no spill over the fence on the property line.
Perfect.
Why don't you take the dumpster the dumpster will be in this area that's now currently pavement, in a fenced area here, and we have no issue with closing off the driveway, just subject to the fire department's approval of that.
Okay, so it'll be right, let's see. So this is
John's house.
John's house.
Right. Is this you?
This is me. This is the driveway, this is my garage, I'm assuming?
Let's say, but, so you know, we could block it at that location. We're not going to have a road that leads people down that driveway, so you might not need any kind of fencing.
I think, I just, for me personally, I have a 4-year-old, I know John and Paula have grandkids. One car going down there and we're not expecting it, there are blind
Yeah,
spots,
there
us
won't be any
pulling out. I think I would feel better with them.
Refresh my memory, are we anticipating a curb?
Yes, I think so.
Okay, so there's a curb that will keep cars from going down that way.
Go counter to where a car is normally directed by scraping and pavement. But, so we have no intention of using that access way as part of this project. Thank you.
Thank you. 5 minutes? Okay. Someone else has to have questions. Gotta come up. Brian? No.
I have comments, but no questions.
Okay, so all right, so let me ask for comments then. I'm assuming someone might want to make comments. Does anybody want to speak? Oh, you have a question?
Yeah. I'm still confused about this other right-of-way. Where is it going to be shut off?
Well, it'll be curved so that it won't be promoted.
Curved where? Help me. I mean, does that entrance go right out between those two property lines to the street?
So this is, yeah, I mean, this property, this 66 High Street has rights over that out.
And that goes to Halleck Street?
Correct, Halleck Street right here. But the curbing that creates the vehicle access will be continuous through here. So it's not like, first of all, there's probably not even room for a car, but the car won't know to go that way because there'll be curbing in its path.
And so the dumpster will be emptied on the...
Yeah.
So is it John? So do you use that path, that right away?
It comes in from Halleck Street. Right?
You do come in. So it wouldn't be appropriate to try to do something at Halleck Street to stop the traffic in there because you're using it?
Well,
you're both happy with that?
Two issues with that right away. It's very narrow. Actually, today with the snowbanks, it measures about 15 feet in width.
Yep.
Which is not very wide to get 2 cars by if you have traffic going through there. As Darby alluded to, we have small children and pets that, could dart out from behind the fence. When you're talking 58 units, potentially a number of cars trying to cut through there, really we're very concerned about traffic.
So you don't want their traffic to go through that?
Right.
Okay. I think he's saying that it won't have to kick. They'll make it
just one concern about the dumpster, and I would ask consideration on alternative places for it. Adjacent to the property, I do have a detached garage with an approved parking in there that I can't rent out. I am intending on renting that even now. The dumpster appears to sit right on the other side of the fence from the entry to that apartment. So just consideration on that.
Is it going to be screened at all with fencing?
Oh, yeah.
What would that look like? Can you give me a vision?
It'll meet historic district requirements for fencing, I'll tell you that.
What does that mean exactly?
It won't be vinyl. It'll be wood screen. In fact, we're proposing Samantha Meter is here as well to lead a group to pick an appropriate fence for replacement of the fence along this property, and the Cowies and Goldfarbs work on a fence along that side as well. So fencing is one of the things we have to get approved through historic districts. It'll be nice.
So he'll have the dumpster screened in with fencing that looks nice.
I guess he's worried about noise, though.
I'm worried about odor.
Traffic noise, there's a fair amount of wildlife in the area as well. It's always a concert. Wildlife, raccoons, possums.
Why is it that 3 of the units have internal? dumpster? Why is it that 3 of the units have internal?
It's new construction versus the old one.
Yeah, these are the buildings that'll have a central elevator core and utility core. So they'll have a trash chute to drop down into the basement area for waste management.
Good. I'm just going to stop the meeting for a second. We have to switch tapes, give everyone a chance to stretch their legs a little. We will not conduct any business while the tape is not running. Okay, we are back and we have not transacted any business. We were just at the point where we're asking for public input for anyone supporting it. Then we'll go to people that are not supporting it. Would anyone like to speak in support of this application? Brian, first up.
Brian McGlone, a resident of 622. I haven't gotten to 66 High Street yet. 622 Mulberry Point Road. However, I am standing here tonight as the Economic Development Coordinator for the town of Guilford. Needless to say, you saw a very comprehensive project with a lot of different things worked out, addressing what I call and think about 66 High Street as one of the hidden gems of Guilford. It's back off in an area a lot of people maybe don't even realize it's there. As it was clearly stated, this was and is still zoned as an industrial property. Many of us maybe weren't even around when Clinipab was here. I honestly was while the business was still active, but not, I can't say that I know it intimately. I didn't at that time, but it's probably vacant, John, 15, 20 years, something 12 years. I mean, it's been quite a number of years when it hasn't been used as Clinipad. It has been used in between on a lighter duty intermittently, but it's certainly been an underutilized facility. And as we heard, there were at its high point probably 200 employees coming through there with cars and small and large trucks entering and exit. I mean, it could be. It still is zoned an industrial zone, and it could become that. Ironically, I was involved with the Economic Commission in January, and we had commercial realtors at our January meeting talking about needs, and one of the things they commented to us was the need for flex space in Guilford. Flex space being a combination of warehousing or light assembly type product space that would, of course, change traffic in and trucks and so on. And, you know, we're not saying that's right around the corner, but that would be something we'd probably have to explore. I had a brief history with the prior owner, David Greenberg, for about a year when I first got into this role. And we did talk, I talked with David about uses, possibilities. He thought about office space, restaurants, maybe other uses. But frankly, he didn't want to make that kind of investment at this point in his life and his career. We had numerous commercial realtors. There was one that principally had the property for probably over 10 years, and I had the chance to meet with probably a half a dozen other developers, but frankly none had the vision, the stamina, the resources to go forward and commit to a project of this magnitude, as we've clearly seen demonstrated tonight. I think the thing that's nice about this project is you look at the town and we do a pretty good job of planning overall. And this project encompasses or was grown out of the Town Center South plan that was adopted going back to 2008. The Plan of Conservation and Development going back to 2002 referenced this property of how it could be used in a better way. The Economic Plan that came out in 2004 referenced this. And in all of them, they were trying to look for the highest and best use of this land, trying to have a quality development with good buildings and landscaping. This concept of transit-oriented development in the train station, I mean, Guilford's train, the usage has been growing, and that whole concept is spreading up and down the shoreline, not just Guilford, but it is a growing in popularity, trying to locate housing near the train stations and close to town and other natural resources. The plan supports and encourages walkable neighborhoods, biking, reducing, minimizing car traffic. Recognizing all this, you have to allow higher density, maybe even mixed use, although we're not calling for any office space in this. And these sustainable designs that you're hearing about, whether it's a septic system, the trees, the landscaping, the water, treatment and everything else, is all part of the plans that were envisioned to happen. And with that, the evolution of this Town Center South plan came about in 2012. It frankly included initially really almost from the railroad bridge to the marina, the prior plan, the Town Center South, was primarily from the railroad bridge to the marina, and in 2012, the Planning and Zoning Commission adopted this Town Center South plan to include the 66 High Street property, with all the things you heard about that Bob so eloquently defined, the characteristics, the requirements that were needed in that zone overlay district. Higher density, again, the building height that has been under a little bit of question, but we recognized when the zone plan was put in place that 60 feet was going to be required to get the housing density to make it economically justifiable. That was an issue, anticipating even back in 2012, this issue of sea level rise and protecting the environment caused us to give up effectively about a story of property, so it does impact the overall building height. Sewage disposal, we heard a lot about. I thought Bob was fancy with all his wood vocabulary until Mark got up and talked about sewage vocabulary. It was something. And you saw so many other standards and guidelines that are being met or exceeded. Concerning the parking, the town has desired less visible parking, and we've got 3 of the buildings that support underground parking. The impervious coverage is talked about in spades, and even incorporating that into the roadway and the walkway that was required by the fire department, and the open space, the paths, the green space, all of those things. So we now have this redevelopment opportunity in front of us. I personally think it's good for the immediate neighborhood, the adjoining streets, and that's my opinion. I don't live in that neighborhood, but I think we'll hear from other neighbors that do encourage it, and there's maybe some still against it. But I also think we have to look at it in a larger context, since it's part of the whole Town Center South plan, looking at it from there to the marina and all the areas it covered. And I really think we have to look at this from a part of it's good for the Guilford community. Many of the people that have come forward that showed interest in this property, and there's probably a list, Kenny probably has a list of 30 names or something close to that, and I'd venture to say more than half of them are current Guilford residents that are in that empty nester area of their lives that want to change their housing situation but stay in Guilford, and they'd love to have the opportunity to live or work, live in and around town so they can enjoy our beautiful downtown, our green, our shops, our restaurants, and so on. So for the commission in front of us, you see how much this meets the zoning code, which is really critical. All these other things are nice, but we're looking at how it meets the zoning code. They're very conscious of that. They're willing to adjust and make adjustments to meet some of these other, I'm sure they're willing to meet, I'm speaking for them, but some of these other things are pretty minor adjustments in the overall plan. I think it's important, too, to just note, we've got local people in Kenny and Ron as major partners in this project and others that are Guilford people. It's not somebody coming in from out of town that wants to build, take the money and run. We have people that live in town, have lived in town, and frankly, they want to live in this development. So I think that's going to say something about this development for years and years to come. Needless to say, a project of this scope and magnitude does take a significant investment by the developers. It's a wonderful project. It will have a significant impact on the Guilford Grand List, and I know we have to look at land uses and how it meets zoning code, but in my role, I can't ignore the economic impact, and depending on how it all shakes out, I mean, this is probably going to add $35 to $40 to $45 million to the town grand list, something in that neighborhood. And round numbers with the property tax and potential revenue, personal property tax on cars, this could be somewhere in the $750,000 to $1 million range in overall tax contribution against our revenue and growing bills. This is kind of, timing is great. We've got the high school coming on board in the near future, so having this project build out over the next couple of years would be great. So we're certainly looking and hoping the Zoning Commission can look positively on this project and support it. The hidden gem of Guilford. We really think it is the highest and best use of this site, and it will be for years to come. Just in closing, I'm sure there are other residents that are going to speak for and against the project. And Leslie Marcus, a neighbor at 68 Norton Avenue, Guilford, her house is over here in this corner, wasn't able to come tonight, so I just wanted to, she sent me a letter. I won't read it here, but essentially she wanted to indicate she's one of the abutting neighbors, probably one of the most impacted, being that close. And in a nutshell, she's very supportive of the project for a whole host of reasons that are articulated in her letter, and I'll give it to Sally and everybody for the record. So thank you very much for the consideration.
Thanks, Brian. Good speech. Good work. This gentleman right here.
John Terudis, 58 High Street. Just a couple comments about the project in favor. 66 High Street is part of Guilford. It's got a lot of history there. The Clintipad building served as a factory for decades. Our parents worked there in World War II. Our family had businesses in that property over the decades. It means a lot to the town. Something has to happen with this property. I think Mr. Horton has put an enormous amount of consideration into the property and to the neighborhood and the impact on the neighborhood and the town. So I'd just like to make those comments.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Stephen.
Steve Copps, 162 Sconset Lane, and I'm speaking tonight as chairman of the Economic Development Commission. And Brian, I'm not going to repeat what Brian said. I just came with a few notes instead. But I do want to make a few points. And although I didn't work at Clintipad, I had occasion to be in there quite a number of times because they were a client for a number of years. And in a general sense, I had a client for probably 20 years that is a world-class architect, known worldwide. And I know that they had staff that specifically looked at an area and said, what is the character of that? What is unique to there? How do we want to design something that fits into that area? And that's certainly what's been going on here. As Brian said, we have local developers, but it's really there's been a lot of thought and planning and careful consideration to try to make something that is as fitting into Guilford as possible. You may question the scale or something like that. I know that that Historic District Commission is looking at that and the height of the building. But the project itself has been very carefully designed to be characteristic of Guilford. I mean, we all heard the presentation tonight. I don't need to elaborate more on that because I think it speaks for itself. And I also know from everything that I didn't know Kenny before, but I have gotten to know him a bit over the last 6 months, both firsthand and secondhand. And I know that, he's really a quality developer, quality builder. We all know that there are builders out there, contractors, and they do sloppy work. This is not the case here. Not only has there been careful planning in the design of it, but it's going to be built well. It's going to last a long time, and people will be happy with it. And aside from the general tax revenue from property taxes, it's going to be close. People there will use the town services, and I'm not talking about emergency services. I'm talking about they will buy their goods and services locally, many of them, and that's really going to help the merchants and the restaurants on the green. And that's important. Economic development in a general sense is anything that brings in more in revenue than it costs in town services. And we've heard tonight that the town services are not expected to have a big demand on them. So everything's been very carefully planned, and I don't need to keep repeating myself. The one other thing I want to point out, though, is that, as was pointed out, they're following low-impact development, LID techniques, which really means just what it, in a very broad sense, it means to have the least amount of impact on the area that is there, specifically the environmental impact. So with that, I'll turn it over to somebody else.
Thank you, Steve.
Excuse me, we have to go, I'm really late. Can I go this quick? I'll be quick. Thank you. Thank you for the consideration. I do appreciate it. My name is Mark Wasserman. I am a commissioner on the Economic Development Commission under the direction of Steve and, what's your name again? I live at 167 Glenwood Drive in Guilford. The one thing that I want to bring light to, I won't repeat anything that everybody else has already said. We know the project is good. I am in support of the project. And one of the reasons why is look at the merchants who are down on the green, the restaurants that we have in Guilford, the shops that we have. This is a long construction project. So these workers who are building this site, they're going to need to eat lunch. They're going to do it locally. They're going to see the nice restaurants. They're going to bring their wives. They're going to come back. They're going to be part of Guilford. They're going to add to our economic baseline. They're going to support our merchants on the green, which we really, really need to do. It's a really positive thing for them. After the construction is finished and the residents have moved in, they're going to enjoy the restaurants and shops on the green as well as other areas of the town. The tax revenue from the properties, the cars, the, I'm going to say boats, sure, why not? And these things will also benefit the town as a whole. As Steve mentioned, there'll be a minimal impact on services, police, fire, those types of services. For those reasons, I really think that it's a good project. It helps support Guilford, and I support that. Thank you very much, and have a good evening.
Thank you.
I'm going to be really quick as well. Darby Long, 15 Atlet. As one of the properties that, is going to most closely abut this and be impacted, I just want to give my support. I think it's a beautiful and very respectfully done project. I've really felt that all of the neighbors our opinions have been taken into consideration, and which we all appreciate and totally support it. I think it's going to be a beautiful project.
Thank you very much. Get someone else coming.
Good evening, everyone, commissioners and fellow neighbors. My name is Dean Mitchell. I live at 36 High Street. So we've been hearing about redevelopment all evening. To me, living in the community and on High Street, I look at it as a renaissance, not a redevelopment. I've watched that building deteriorate for years. I said, what better purpose for the community, the residents, the townspeople, and the economic development than to have what we're going to have hopefully approved for 66 High Street. I've watched this over the past year evolve in personal concerns from the neighborhood, from the residents. Sure, there's issues of traffic. Sure, there's issues of concern, of congestion. I will tell you, I've never seen a more dedicated and more attuned group of people addressing the needs of the area, the community, and the town than what I've seen from the gentlemen that have put this project together. I respect them because they opened up 66 High Street for all of us to see what their plans were months ago. They took us in. They were transparent about what they wanted to do, and they've even evolved it to be even better than I ever thought it would be. So, who's going to move into 66 High Street? Well, people like me. My kids grew up in Guilford. My wife and I have businesses and community, and our kids grew up. And we were living in a big house and saying, what better place to live than downtown Guilford? And the equivalent of the people like me are my friends, and they're saying, how do we get to live downtown, enjoy all the services, be by the train, enjoy the restaurants, and have a great place to stay once we downsize to our homes? And it's a perfect opportunity to fulfill a need. So that's who the demographics are, people like me. And I want to thank Kenny and Ron for doing all the things they did to make this project a beautiful one. It's going to add to the community, it's going to add to the neighborhood, it's going to add to our architecture, and it's been well thought of and well planned. And I welcome them. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
My name's Peter Cowie. I live on 55 High Street. My wife Jennifer and I, we live right here. We're totally impacted, right there. Our southern and western boundaries are right on the property. You stand out there, you're looking at it. And the one thing, I'm not going to go on for the thing, but with Kenny Horton and Ron Nault, before they even came over, they came over with renditions of the property because I'm the most impacted property that they have. And they showed me what they were doing right away. And we'll take care of everything. So we'll put up any type of fence you want, we'll put up the landscaping you want and everything. How can you beat it? Thanks.
Thank you, sir. All right.
Good evening. Matthew Obuck, 10 Broad Hill Circle. I just wanted to get up and state my, a very strong support of this project here in Guilford. When I saw that this was happening about almost a year ago, I thought that was the one possible thing, just well, let's, when we go outside tonight and it's -3, to keep us from going down to South Carolina or to North Carolina. I mean, really, what's going to keep us here? This is basically a self-contained community just based on its proximity to the town center. This is a town center by default, like what they did in West Hartford and other areas. Obviously, down south, they're much more popular, but what's going to keep us here when we get to be 50? I'm an empty nester now. I got 3 kids that I put through, did as much as I could do in the community for my path that I took as an adult with, my jobs and how I had to go make money. But the fact of the matter is my kids are out. I'm looking for a smaller space. Am I going to go down south or stay up here? That's one thing that would keep me here in Guilford. So it's about community longevity as well. I haven't had the opportunity to be as involved in the community as I really would have wanted to be over the years because of my job, but now that I'm getting older, I want to be more involved. And when you have legitimate businessmen that have proven themselves here, and they've done the jobs that they've proven they can do over time, and they're putting this project on the table, it's an absolute no-brainer. And I think, for people who love their community, obviously, and what they've done for their community, the state, and their love of the country, I mean, we don't have anything better to put on the table here for sure to keep people and keep the community, as it is, and keep people here as long as possible until they die here in Guilford. That's it.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
And if you want to become more involved in the community, there's plenty of openings on all the commissions. Please feel free to join. It goes for everybody. Okay. Who else would like to speak? Anyone else?
My name is John Peters, 41 Murray Lane. Resident of Guilford, obviously, and a business person in Guilford. I like this project. I like the fact that it's going to broaden our tax base. We have a $100 million school coming through. I think this will offset some of that a bit. I also like the fact that Ron and Kenny, who I've known for more than a decade, are going to preserve part of Guilford history in the building as well. I would also like to say that my family will find this rewarding as well. We own a business in Guilford downtown, and I think when they started working on this project, a ton of people, the workers came through and spent money in downtown businesses, the little delis, the coffee shops. And I think with the construction coming through, it'll do the same thing again. And I think with the residents, it'll be a big bonus for us. I like the fact that it's all within walking distance. I think the restaurants downtown, the hardware stores downtown, the grocery stores downtown will all be affected by what these gentlemen are trying to do, and I think in a positive way. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Mark Larkins, 1 Potter Hill Drive, lifelong resident of Guilford. I remember when Clement Pad was a full operating factory with trucks and so forth going up and down the street. I think this is a great project. I'm not going to talk about it, everything that was said before about low impact, taxes, everything. I want to talk about the team that, Ron and Ken put together, and I've known Kenny for, like John said, a little over a decade. This guy doesn't do anything less than 100%. This is going to be a beautiful project, one that Guilford could be proud of, and I think that it should pass with flying colors. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Who else? I'm not hearing anybody against. Who else would like to speak? Anyone else? No one else? Great opportunity. Okay. All right. Any other last-minute questions?
We'll close the public hearing.
So I want to, before you do, mention one thing. As some of you know, the Historic District Commission had originally requested that we keep this public hearing open because they were contemplating trying to develop a statement tonight at their meeting, which was going on simultaneous with ours. I spoke with the chairman of the commission, Historic District Commission, a few moments ago. He's withdrawn his request that you continue the hearing. He's requested that I submit for the record the minutes of the Historic District Commission meetings where they've discussed this project. I think there have been at least 4 occasions where that's done, so let the record show that I am submitting those minutes for your, as part of the record for this, and that they are not requesting a continuation of the hearing.
Thank you, George. All right, we have a motion. No, we have another speaker.
Now, just, I guess by way of, under the public hearing, I've got letters from residents, including some of the closest neighbors, Leslie Marcus, Marco and Helen Rizzo, who live here of the property. Leslie Marcus lives here, adjacent to the property as well, and then some other just general Guilford residents, but official letters to submit for the record. And then this is just the PowerPoint presentation that Bob gave earlier, so just
give it up.
Part of the record. Thank you.
I'll move again that the public hearing be closed.
Darn it. Okay. All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so the public hearing is closed. Well, this is an interesting little situation we have. That's good. Okay. Ray, how are you feeling?
Well, seeing as how there's no need to continue the public hearing, I would suggest that we get a motion on the floor to discuss and vote on it this evening. So I'll propose the following motion. Voted that the Guilford Planning and Zoning Commission approve the special permit, site plan, and coastal management site plan for 66 High Street, Guilford LLC, at 66 High Street and 47 South Fair Street, map 32, lots 60 and 64, for residential development as shown on all of the plans and documentations pertaining to this application is on file and presented to the commission at a public hearing held on February 18, 2015. In particular, the drawings titled The Residences at 66 High Street dated January 2015 by Ludus Consulting Engineers, LLC. This application is approved with the following conditions. Number 1, the conditions 1 and 2 as shown on a letter from Dennis Johnson, Director of Health, dated February 18th in regards to this application being incorporated. Number 2, that conditions 1 through 4 on pages 2 and 3 of a letter dated February 18th from Kevin McGee, Environmental Planner, to this commission also be included. In addition, that all of the conditions is listed in a letter from Wayne Petrie, Assistant Fire Chief, dated February 18th in regards to this application, also be incorporated. And finally, that the conditions from Jim Portley from a letter dated February 18th be included, namely that the applicant will discuss and finalize the design of the entrance at the intersection of South Fair and High Streets with the town engineer to ensure that the snow plowing situation that he points out is taken care of. Number 2, that the overall stormwater plan must be properly documented so that the existing prescriptive drainage rights across rights through 66 High Street property be preserved and guarantee that the town has the ability to maintain the street drainage system, and that prior to the issuance of any building permits, the developers, engineers submit a traffic management plan for review by town staff that addresses all issues of concern that were pointed out by the engineer. And finally, that no building permits should be issued until a certificate of appropriateness from the Historic District Commission is obtained. This application is approved based upon a finding that it conforms with the zoning code, including the Town Center South Overlay Zone District, sections 273-25 and 273-91. The Commission also finds that this application is consistent with the coastal area management policies of the state of Connecticut, and that this special permit is effective on February 27, 2015, and upon filing with the town clerk.
Thanks, Ray.
Second.
Okay, I have a second. Go ahead.
I have a question. Could you go back to the part that was at the end about the Historic District Commission?
Yeah, I mean, that's a
letter, certificate of appropriateness.
Yes, that's a legal requirement that they need to issue a certificate of appropriateness before this can go forward. So
For any building permits.
For any building permits. So we'll make that a condition
that happen before this become effective, the special permit piece of this. Since that's a requirement.
So I have a question there. If they made a decision tonight at their meeting not to make a decision.
Let me clarify that. There are two roles that the Historic District Commission potentially have with regard to this project. The first was to act in a manner similar to the Design Review Committee acts with respect to applications before the Planning and Zoning Commission. In fact, the Town Center South overlay zone requirements require that the commission refer the application, any application for a special permit within the Town Center District overlay zone that's within the Historic District, refer the application to the Historic District Commission for any comment that they might have. Notwithstanding the fact that they met and discussed this project several times, they declined to make any official comment to you with regard to their opinion of this project, except as it might be reflected through the minutes of their discussions, which they've had prior to this point. They will also be required, before any building permits can be issued for this project, assuming it's approved by Planning and Zoning, any improvements that are subject to their jurisdiction, which means anything that's visible from a public way, has to have a so-called certificate of appropriateness from them before a building permit can be issued. That's a separate application process that doesn't normally occur until after planning and zoning approval has occurred, and deals with those aspects of the building design that are visible from a public street. So regardless of whether you include that in your conditions of approval, they will still have to obtain a certificate of appropriateness before any building permit can be issued that meets that criteria. Does that
answers the question, but it's an interesting.
It sure is.
What if they decide not to issue a certificate of appropriateness after we've approved it?
They have to make their decision based on their rules and regulations and law. And if it should come to that, then the applicant would have whatever remedies are available to them legally and otherwise.
Okay. If it's a condition before the building permit, why do we have to have it as a condition?
You don't really. It's just it's a reminder really to the applicant that is a requirement. Not that they need that reminder, but I thought it was appropriate to have that in your findings.
You've been reminded.
Okay.
Yeah. Richard?
I'm good. I mean, I guess I would move to strike the certificate requirement, and I mean, if they've got to go through the process anyway, why do we want to add on? But
I'll second his motion.
Okay, I'll withdraw that last condition about the certificate of appropriateness, and I'll resecond it.
Okay. So now we don't have that in there.
That's right.
So it's clear that doesn't obviate their need to
But they still need to obtain it.
we're just not making it one of our conditions.
One more hoop to jump through after this. Okay, I mean, I guess I'll just go first. After hearing the plan, it's obviously well thought out, well engineered. It has a lot of support from the community and perhaps more importantly from a lot of the adjoining neighbors. I can't think of any changes that I would want to see in it. I think they've agreed to all of the conditions that we've asked for. Not only has the state, John Goucher, signed off on this, but town staff has as well with the conditions that we've included. So therefore, I'm in favor of granting this application.
Thanks, Frank.
Yeah, same. I'm not going to repeat everything Ray said, but he said it very eloquently.
He does. He's a very eloquent guy. Phil?
It's a model for a terrific development.
George?
I'm good, thank you.
Richard?
As somebody said today, it's probably one of the top 3 projects in the last 20 years of the town. And it's well thought of and well conceived, and they made it fit.
I personally want to thank all the people that showed up here tonight. This is a great project, and for the neighborhood to work with the developer and get them to do what they need to do, it's a tribute to the people in this neighborhood, because this is really a big project, and it's going to be a great project for the town. And I want to personally thank you. I think everybody on the board does too.
Yep.
Thanks for being here. It's really uplifting.
It is. Good, thank you. All right, so, sometimes my job isn't so easy to sit here, but you made my job very, very easy tonight, so thank you. Your thoughtful consideration of the neighborhood, your careful planning really sets a standard that we wish all of our applicants would meet. I'm humbled by the amount of work that you've put into this, and I'm thrilled, absolutely thrilled by how it appears and how it's accepted by the community. So with that in mind, all those in favor?
Aye.
Congratulations. Any opposed? Abstentions? No. Motion carries. Congratulations. Good work.
Next order of business.
Take a minute, clear out.
Should we move upstairs? Yeah. Do the bills? Site plan. Don't run away yet. Nice job, thank you.
Thank you. We love this
Thanks for coming up, great job.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity.
You bet. How you doing?
How you doing, Ken?
Doing great.
Great job and good luck.
Mr. Chairman, I think we could tell him to get out so we can finish our business. You just want to run for the door.
He just didn't want to raise the ire in front.
All right.
Nobody here to conduct any business.
I know. Well, no, we got some big stuff. I don't know if you saw.
Shannon, you're still alive, right?
Hey, guys, we still have to do a meeting, so if you want to celebrate, come on home. Just
Everybody get out, please. You've got quite a presence.
I came here from Norwich. I came here and they went there.
They ran for it. They don't want to be anywhere near you.
Yeah, it was your fault that they...
All right.
Sunday night.
So, what do we got? We got subdivision, nothing going on. Site plan, nothing going on. Applications to be received. Can I get a motion to receive and set a hearing date for Russo Real Estate, March 18th?
So moved. Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Lifelinks, March 18th.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Judy and Jerry.
Ray and Frank. Ray motion, Frank second.
Judy and Jerry Thies, 10 Wingate Road. Can I get a motion to...
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, great. Coastal Area Management Site Plan, Mara Weissman, I know this woman. She's been here before.
Yes, this is
Set a
the-
hearing date of March 18th.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor? All right. Correspondence. Oh, okay. So we have here a situation that we have to deal with. We spoke last week or 2 weeks ago about having the folks from the Ag Society give us a list and see if we think it fits in with the 1989 agreement. And after reviewing our bylaws, it seems that the commissioners get to make the decision on whether or not these things fit in with our wording. And so we have 7 things here that are all going to take place this summer, and we kind of have to decide as a group whether or not they fit in. We've never done this before. George, do you have any insights for me here, or just let's tear into it? All right, so let's look again. What's that?
You don't have to do this right now.
Yeah, wait, right here. We can take care of them in 5 minutes.
Everything looks like but the wedding.
Everything but the wedding. Everything but the wedding, except for the Time Machine Car Show, but that fits under the category of auto shows.
And if it's a 501 or a nonprofit, then that makes it okay. So it's really the wedding and the car show we know is definitely under there. So it's really the wedding.
All right. So the question is, and really what it comes down to is, should we, can we, will we make an exception for the Guilford Agricultural Society to be married at the fairgrounds? Should we do that? Does it set a precedent? Will we then be asked to make all kinds of exceptions in the future?
I don't think a wedding, say for a member of the society,
Yes.
it's not a commercial event.
It is to the Ag Society. They might be renting the place out.
Right, but it's, I mean, unless they're charging tickets.
Well, they probably charged a fee.
on the green without permission?
That's.
They want the fairgrounds for this, but they could get it if they wanted, have a wedding on the green.
I don't know that they could. They may need a permit for that.
Well, that's what I'm asking. It's parallel, because when you set a precedence on this thing, you better make sure they can carry it through.
Hey, George, if I wanted to get married on the green, who would I have to ask?
I think you need permission from the Board of Selectmen. I don't think they don't allow special events like that on the green.
Now you're running into it.
I think use of the green in any town property is there's no alcoholic beverages. So not too many weddings want to happen without alcohol.
But in theory, you can get married at Jacob's Beach if you wanted to. They have your reception there without alcohol.
But you'd have to have the permission of the, in that case, department rep, or in the case of the Board of Selectmen. I don't know if they.
Well,
you need permission.
Why I bring it up?
You're just gonna kind of casually go down there.
Well, no. When I say permission, you have to. I did it for a party.
You are setting a precedent, and it's something, maybe sometime where something else comparable wants it at the same time. Now you got a problem. Who's got precedence on it?
What do you? I can't really hear what you're saying. But your question was the green, whether the town.
I'm saying I'm not in favor of giving permission for a wedding. Okay, I don't see that as a 501c3. It may come out that way, but that's the only time you know.
Yeah, I think the thing we're going to have to do if we want to approve the wedding is it's going to have to be under the similar activities.
But that's not a similar activity. And what I'm worried about is, they have an attorney, and he could point to this and say, you guys authorized that wedding.
That's right.
And now I want to have something else. Right. And if we're going to bend the rules, we are setting a precedent. We will be asked to bend the rules again. There's no question about that. But more than just being asked to bend the rules, we probably are serving ourselves up on a golden platter to him, saying, all right, you know what, we bent the rules on this one. Now make us bend the rules on every other one because we did this. I don't want to say no to Ms. Dudley.
I don't think that's necessarily the case because, just like any application, just because we approve something, this guy, the guy next door doesn't automatically get it approved if the circumstances are different. So I don't think they could necessarily, now they may be able to say, well, you approve that one. Maybe what you can say here is the fact that it was already booked, okay? And the exception really was the fact that this was booked prior to the time it was clear that we had ruled on that special permit a couple of weeks ago. It was the only way I could see to get around it. I mean, I hate to...
So let me ask you a question. Supposing you're the Guilford Agricultural Society, and you want to have a wedding hall at the fairgrounds, and you need a way to crack the ice to be able to have that. So you present someone on this list that we'd want to say yes to because they're a member of, and they're saying a member of the Ag Society, so they're giving you incentive to say yes.
Well, I think one of the things you could do is you could say that the limited reason for the approval is because they were a member of the Ag Society, maybe, you know, that comes under agricultural affairs, or it's a similar nature.
So
You know,
so
because,
theoretically, all you have to do is join the Ag Society to be able to be married at the fairgrounds.
yeah. You're
And
right,
so that
theoretically.
gets around that.
So it's a tough one. I mean, I know what you're saying. I mean, I feel, I don't know what you do. I mean, it's already September, somebody's already booked it.
You know, my feeling
I
is
don't like to
that
be a bad guy, but I hear what you're saying.
what I think we wanted to eliminate was the 3-day jazz festivals, and now we're in the unfortunate position of probably having to say no to Lisa Dudley, who wants to get married at the fairgrounds.
Go ahead, I didn't mean...
You know, and no, I'm just thinking out loud, like, you know, like we were just saying on the green, you know, you just go there and do it discreetly and then you leave, but that's how we ended up in this situation, is they were doing things kind of on the, you know, doing things, and they kind of got out of control. And so, you know, what position are we to take? Are we to take the enforcement of the 1989 agreement to the letter? If we start in the gray area, and I want Lisa to be able to get married there, I do. However, when I'm sitting here, I have to take my personal feelings out of it. That's part of being on this commission. It's hard to do sometimes. It's really hard to do.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you can easily fit it into what's allowed right now.
If they didn't charge
Condition 1.
Yeah. If they didn't charge her a fee to utilize the fairground, would that make a difference?
I don't think so.
No,
I mean,
she's still not at that problem.
Because it's
Well, I
limited
can make a
to...
suggestion that I can write a letter on behalf of the commission saying that, you know, the activities, you know, up to that one are all approved, consistent with the 1980, and not say anything about it.
All right,
And then deal with some kind of a zoning enforcement issue later on if it comes up.
Okay, and I guess what my fears are is that we say yes to it and they use it as an entree.
We don't say yes
against
to it. In this letter, we say, we approve your list, Lifeline Race, GPD, whatever, all of them, list them specifically, but don't list that one.
Right.
And then let it sort of, you know, hang out there.
I hate that. I don't want to be a winner.
Haven't they already done that? Because they said it's already been booked.
Well, they booked it, but it hasn't occurred. I mean, the action, the activity would be the zoning violation.
Isn't what we're trying to do is to limit the activities there to non-profit organizations?
Well, it's more than that. It's strictly agricultural fairs, craft shows, auto shows, and similar activities. So if this isn't a similar activity, they shouldn't be doing it.
Well, I hear that and I agree with it. But, I mean, this wedding is 6 months away. And sometimes weddings have to be booked a year in advance.
So what happens if they have loud rock music and the neighbors thought they had our protection in place?
They need to be told they can't do that.
So
I'm saying that I would be willing to approve this one activity as an event because it's already booked and it's a wedding. But I wouldn't do it again for next year.
I assume it is.
And so, Ray, as a lawyer, I need your legal advice. As a lawyer,
My advice is, and it's, who knows how it'll come out, someone could try to still use it against you, but, you know, my advice is to say that this is one will be approved, this one time only.
One time only.
Only because of the fact that it was already booked, but in the future, any other ones, like anything, is supposed to come through us as of this beginning of February, right?
Right.
So what we could say is that we're only making this exception because of the fact it was booked prior to us having...
And please don't come here in 6 months and say, all right, now I got another wedding, and you already said yes to that one.
But, and that's the only reason...
Make that a motion.
Yeah. Well, someone make that a motion. I can't do that.
Well, I guess the motion would be that all of the items on the list that is submitted dated 2/10 are approved. However, the Lisa Dudley wedding for 9/15 is only being approved because of the fact that it was booked prior to the time that the February 2nd meeting, is that it? 7th?
Yeah.
7th meeting occurred where this requirement was put in place where we would review these, and that we don't anticipate approving any future weddings. Well, second, we will. Okay.
In the form of a motion. We have a second. Any other discussion?
I just noticed what isn't on here, the Robin Hood.
I know.
Well, they also, I just noticed that actually the fair isn't on this list.
But neither is the...
I think it's supposed to be. I think that was an oversight on their part.
So just make sure it gets on this.
Yeah, I added the fair bill on this.
As part of the approval.
Yeah, I just added that to my list.
So we can, I'll update the motion to say that the traditional Guilford Fair that's held every year is also approved upon whatever
Even though it's
date
not on the
occurs.
list.
I'll amend my motion. I'll amend my second.
Okay.
Yeah, good.
All those in favor?
Okay?
All right. Thank you. All right, attendance for CBA. This is Reggie twisted my arm and said I had to go to this thing. Is anyone else going to this thing?
It's good, actually. It's a pretty good event.
Yeah, it is a good event.
It's not dry at all.
No, but if you're interested in this sort of subject matter, it's very well done.
I'm planning on going on the 21st.
I am going, but I think I'm going with
I guess it's the
Who did do you know anything about that?
Okay.
No, I do not.
Okay, I'll make a note of it. We'll talk to Michelle. She must have the registrations.
Yeah, that'd be good if you did.
So who's going? Cost and
Cost, Bauer,
and Meyer?
Everybody's going, right?
Do we have special sashes that say Guilford and Planning and Zoning, or?
They give you badges, like name tags.
This is not a
I think it says Guilford zoning.
This is at Wesleyan,
Wesleyan, it's good.
just where I want to go.
Still not clear on
So
who's going.
could you get a clear,
Okay, I'm going, Rich and Tom.
and,
Okay,
yeah.
okay.
Two Riches, a Tom, and a Rick.
And we've got Walter and Josh missing, so someone ought to canvass them.
Hey, Sally?
We'll check with
I
them.
may be signed up under wetlands, so don't double book me.
Oh, you have to pay for
I
these?
might have multiple
I think it's
personality
55
disorder.
per person.
All right, letter from the Guilford Land Trust regarding support for grant application.
We've written these letters before. If you see the property that they want to buy on the, it's in this color Xerox. It's right in the middle of the Westwood Trails area, so it's certainly a worthy thing. If you approve this motion, we'll write a letter on behalf of the chairman in support of this.
Make a motion that we approve of the writing of a letter to support this.
I'll second that.
All those in favor? Great. Discussion of the report from the Planning Committee and proposed zoning amendment regarding propane bulk storage. Okay, so we have our Planning Committee, Russ Campaign, who's working diligently on coming up with some safe rules about propane storage. And what that means is, right now, we follow the NFPA guidelines. We're within 50 feet of a property line. Potentially, whatever the setback is of a home, you could be within 75 feet of someone's home. And so they're coming up with some minimum guidelines as far as setbacks, lot size, and other zoning conditions. And they are finalizing their wording, but I wanted to get that out and so we could talk about it and set a public hearing date for it.
Do we know how many properties could be developed with this? In other words, how many lots, or are there any practical locations where, assuming that all these requirements had to be met, where we could place one?
Right. We're looking primarily in the I-1, I-2 zones, and the one big mention was the one north of 95, Pinchbeck.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I might limit it to even like the I-1 or I-2 zone.
That's what it is limited to.
That's what it is.
Okay, because I don't see, where, does it say that here?
Yeah,
Did I miss
line
it?
24B. A special permit at I-1 and I-2 zones.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
line 24B.
Okay, yeah, I mean, as long as there's some...
Yeah, there is.
There's some properties there, that's my main concern.
So we've had this ongoing argument about the zoning change we made in the west end of town.
Yeah.
Would this, the way this is written, would the intention be now that we couldn't put a propane?
That's on the second page.
The idea of this is that if you adopted this other regulation that allowed propane in these more appropriate locations, the industrial zones, you would delete the requirement for the, that allows it in the CD zone on the west side.
That's on the back of
That's part of this proposal. I mean, you don't have to do you don't have to do that part, but it is that's part of the idea.
This is you guys.
Isn't that clever?
We'll put it in the first meeting in April.
I don't know if you know what, when's the earliest we can have the public hearing? Like when?
April, the first meeting in April.
And could we vote on it then?
No, you have to have two nights.
Two, it's a
You have to
zoning
have hearings on
amendment.
2 nights.
It can't be voted on unless it's going out to public hearing
So
twice.
can we, do we have time to do it in the next meeting, the March?
You could do it on the 18th of March.
Let's do it on the 18th.
And then the 1st of April also.
Yep. Yep, let's do it on the 18th of March, please.
Yep. Yeah, we have time to advertise it for that.
Okay. There's an astounding amount of bills this month.
Is there a motion to do that?
Oh, yeah. Could I have a motion to set a hearing date of March the 18th?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. There's an astounding amount of bills this month. We burn through money like crazy on these notifications, and every year it comes up in front of the state legislature that we get rid of these newspaper notifications, and every year the newspaper lobby goes up and lobbies our lawmakers and gets us put back in. And that's felt by every commission that has to notice. And so we have to approve almost $250 in this meeting for newspaper notices.
Mr. Chairman, I move we pay the bills.
Okay, so that's Shore Publishing, $26, New Haven Register, $220. I have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Did everyone have an opportunity to review the minutes of the 2/4/15 regular meeting?
Did not.
I need to recuse myself since I wasn't here.
Did anyone review them?
I did. They look good to me.
Okay, and they look good to me too.
Timing is everything, it was a fine.
Okay, so we have a couple of people that looked at it. Should I ask everyone else to look at it, or should we just approve it based on?
I'm willing to approve it.
You can trust me.
Okay.
A couple of people have read it.
All right, so all those in favor? Aye. Okay, good.
Actually, I'll just abstain, but that,
Oh, now you're abstaining, thanks.
but
After
no,
the
it
rest
still
of,
passes, it
all
still
of our heads are in the news, okay.
whatever. I'm for them.
Thank you, okay. So that's approved. All right, there's no other business before us. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
Just one thing.
Oh, wait, I have one thing.
Did you? I promised to be short.
You got the
I
floor.
did all the homework for coastal resiliency plan.
What do you
Thinking
think?
it was tonight.
What do you think?
I just want to pass this out because I want everybody to publicly know that as the document now exists, I will not vote for it.
And you want to explain why?
Very quickly, there's two things that really bothered me. One is that I think the that in the document, we actually talk about the possibility of using eminent domain. And I have become and ultimately opposed to eminent domain. It is not a fair system for taking property from people, because the person that's trying to do it has all the cards in their hand. 100%. So I would rather, my rather would be that there's got to be another way. I mean, what I heard First Selectman say, I think at the meeting, was one of the issues is whether the town could end up being liable because we didn't take some action on a piece of property that nobody should be living on. We let them live there. And I think there's got to be other legal remedies that the town could come up with under ordinance or something else that would limit the town's liability. If someone is dumb enough to want to stay on a piece of property that's going to be underwater, so be it, but the town should not be responsible for that person.
I agree with you.
So I won't, if there's not a change in that language, I won't support it. And secondly, I also, the other problem I had with it is we're looking at a model that was used to come up with a number that at the highest risk where you could have 52 inches of water level, ocean level rise in 65 years. Versus actual data that an engineer from Cornell presented that says the actual sea level rise is measured in New London and Bridgeport is approximately 10.8 inches a century every 100 years. Now, I am convinced that there's sea level rise. The issue is that the model is predicting 7.5 times more sea level rise than actual statistical data for the last 100 years. So I can't buy in, I just can't, I can't look at this plan. What I wish this plan would do would say to me, okay, we know for sure that we're going to have, right now, that we're having approximately, let's just round it up to a foot every 100 years. So in the next 65 years, where are we likely to be, really likely to be, based on that actual data? In the extreme, the actual documents that we got show that the real bump in the sea level rise is from the 50th year to the 80th year. It takes a curve, sharp curve like this. So what I would propose is, what I would like to have seen in this plan is, okay, let's pick a number. Let's pick, we're going to have 25 inches in 80 years. That's, to me, that may still be high, but I would be willing to agree to that. And if that's the case, then what part of this does the town really have to work on to be able to make us be viable on the shoreline for that period of time? And not day one be looking at trying to figure out how to handle 52 inches in 65 years. That there should be a step in here, and the step should be enunciated in the coastal resiliency plan as to what we can do now for the next 20 years and then the next 20 years. If we know in 20 years that we're going to in fact have a much higher sea level rise, then we have another action plan that says this is what we have to do now to get there.
Okay, so you know, while it's fresh in your mind, I was having a hard time figuring out what the action plan really is. You know, I think that it's, and I hate to say it, but I think that the document is more a vehicle for applying for grants than it is for resolving issues surrounding coastal rise. Also, in the issue of eminent domain, I was assured that the document doesn't increase or decrease the availability of the use of eminent domain by the municipalities involved. I don't know if that's true. If by having it in that document, does it just automatically increase it? And I honestly don't know the answer to that question. So for me, you know, I've read the document a lot of times, and you know, you get a headache at around page 30, and it's hard to read, and it's a lot of just really dry data. But I agree with Tom that, you know, it takes the worst case scenario, and it says that it's going to be, you know, a disaster.
But it does outline some proactive measures that we can start to think about, such as shoreline hardening, et cetera.
We're already doing, yeah, I agree with that.
On our radar to be moving forward.
Right, so how would the town foster hardening of the shoreline? Like, what would the mechanism be? Would, you know, I saw in there we're going to get neighborhood groups to work together to deal with their own area. But, you know, what would the role of the town be there? Would we go there and facilitate discussions? Would we start a neighborhood group somehow? Like, I'm trying to figure out what the mechanism in the document is. That it has lofty goals. You know, it wants us to harden shoreline for sure. It wants us to attenuate wave pressure. It wants us to recognize tidal rise and start not having any more properties built on 1 foot elevation lots. And that's great. I agree with that. But how do you get there? It doesn't say how you get there in there. And I've tried to figure out how to get there. This is not my forte. You know, I know planning and zoning, it should be our forte.
Well, let me. I think I've heard 3 or 4 questions here. I don't think right now is the time to try to address them, but I understand what the questions are.
Right to bring it out, though.
Yeah, definitely, because we'll try to address them on the 4th.
Okay. The
issue of eminent domain, I mean, the town has the power of eminent domain. It's in law. Whether we mention it or not in the coastal area management plan doesn't affect that power. Well, it's still there.
We could have left it out, and I wouldn't have brought this up.
If we hadn't mentioned it at all, then people would accuse. We talked about that extensively, because then there was fear that if we didn't mention it, people were afraid that there was a power there that the town has, that we're not mentioning it. Aren't we being sort of secretive or duplicitous about it because we don't mention it? When it's obviously something that local governments do use in the context of coastal resilience activities. They do, that is something that local governments use from time to time.
I guess
so it's very hard, you know, we can't make the law, we can't through the plan itself eliminate the fact that the town has that power.
Well, I guess what I am saying, I think I would like our town to be different. And we could be different by saying, we're going to find another mechanism.
Right.
Another mechanism to get the same result.
Well, I think we can say that in the plan. I think the plan does say that. I mean, the first selectman and the Board of Selectmen could adopt a resolution that says the town will never use eminent domain. I mean, would that be legally binding on future boards of selectmen? Probably
I don't
not.
think then the state could do it.
Pardon me?
I mean, the state could jump in over the town and do it anyway.
Absolutely.
And I understand that.
Yeah,
I'm just saying, I think that there's got to be more thought into that.
We'll try to address that further. And I understand the question about the worst-case scenario. And the implementation of the plan is something, there's so many ideas in the plan that it's hard to grapple with, well, what do you do next? That's definitely a deficiency of it. I'm not sure quite how to address that. But
the other thing I see is that if you jump to the highest possibility right away, this plan is loaded with expense. There's a lot of potential for a lot of expense to the taxpayers of the town of Guilford. So I don't want this document to be read as, a rush to develop plans that are going to cost the town a lot of money, when in fact they may not all be necessary because the model didn't give us exactly what the answer is.
I think there is something in that document somewhere that talks about setting up, and in fact it is something that the USGS and other agencies are actually doing in Guilford, setting up monitoring stations that are actually measuring rates of rise now so that we can evaluate what happens over the next 10 or 20 years, what the actual data is, and compare that with what the models are projecting and see whether we're on path A or path B or path C. But clearly you can't just, the heart of the whole thing is that you can't just take past trends and project them at that rate and say that's what it's going to be, because the whole basis of this is that the rate of increase in sea level rise is going up.
Exponential.
Well, actually, I didn't read that. I read that the change in rate is going up.
Both. I think that's true. It seems. I think that's true, and we do need to model that over, because this is a 50-year plan. We do need to model what happens over the next 10 years, and then you can adjust your model accordingly. I think maybe we need to emphasize that more in the plan, that's what we want to do.
I didn't really want to stretch this out tonight, but on the other hand, you could also ask the model, has this model been done in a way so that it makes accommodations over time for changes that we do in that period of time, like more wind generation, more solar panels.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that question.
Population control. If those things aren't in there, then this model to me is useless.
Well, if all of a sudden you mean all the countries of the world come together and come up with a comprehensive climate change agreement, then maybe the projections will ratchet down a little bit. That's quite possible.
I just wanted to read this too, because this is one of the things that was handed out. I don't know if we got it as an afterpiece, but we got this.
Right, yes.
And in the end of it, this is a long, pretty scientific document. But at the end, under conclusions, it says, and I quote, based on a large body of science, we identify 4 scenarios for global mean sea level rise, ranging from 0.2, I'm going to say inches, ranging from 8 inches to 6.6 feet by 2100. These scenarios provide a set of plausible trajectories of global mean sea level rise for use in assessing vulnerability, impacts, and adaptive strategies. None of these scenarios should be used in isolation, and experts and coastal managers should factor in locally and regionally specific information on climate, physical, and ecological, and biological processes, and on the culture and economy of coastal communities. So this is saying, you gotta really look at this more closely.
Right.
And that's all I'm saying.
Well, good. And, I want to say one thing. It's easy to gloss over these documents. I mean, it's hard reading. It's like going to the dentist and getting root canal. But But, it falls to us to kind of read them. So Tom is doing a really good thing, and I compliment you. And I wish that I could put more energy into it. I read it, and I go into a stupor.
It's crazy.
So as much as I hate to ask you guys to do it, if you do, maybe spend 30 minutes a day, 20 minutes a day, just reading parts of it and familiarizing yourself if you haven't already done it. I know it's hard, and we gotta have an intelligent discussion about this in the next month.
We're going to need more of these.
Well, I'll bring bags and bags of candy, but
I challenge anyone to, because I've tried to do it, what would be a scenario, a middle road scenario that the town could act on in trying to get through this thing and get to those key steps that we could do in the middle? I can't do it.
Well, some key things, the gentleman who lived on the road that goes to Jacobs Beach was saying how Seaside Avenue, he just bought some property, and if the town's going to abandon that, he's been harmed by the town. In the very first meeting, I listened to someone else talk about how their shoreline bit of property has been in their family for generations, and it's up to them to decide if they want to deal with the flooding or not. And, it's not up to the town to come in and take it through eminent domain. And as much as we want to do what's right for the people in this town, it's really how you define what that is. And for me, respecting the rights of the guy who owns that property is bedrock. It can't be, it can't be changed. If that guy owns that property and he wants to put up with the floods and it's been his family for generations, there is nothing I will ever do to interfere with that. And I don't want to condone this document if it includes something like that, because it's not right. He has every right in the world to say, you know what, I'll stand knee deep in water. My grandfather had this property. I want to keep this. I can't go in. I can't say anything against that. So I agree 100%. I don't know that increases the use of eminent domain. I also know that every time you say it, you're giving more weight to it. So I don't know that I want it in there. And I'm trying hard to work together with everybody to give everyone what they want. But I have a problem with eminent domain, both sitting here in this chair, but also personally. So I agree with you on that one.
Watching what happened in New London was horrendous.
We will not have New London in Guilford as long as I have anything to say about it. And I may not, but it's totally unacceptable to me. So I agree, and thank you. Thank you for reading it and taking it apart.
Will we adjourn?
Oh, now. Is any second on second? All those in favor? Good night, everybody.